Chapter 786. Chuli said, Son Gigi, if you know what's good for you, get lost, and the Holy Church of Light will spare your lives. If you don't, you know what will happen to you. He raised his voice and shouted at the crowd, Listen up, people of the Windstorm Association. This place used to belong to the Radiance clan of the Holy Church of Light. How dare you, the Windstorm Association, occupy this place without permission? How dare you? Get lost, or the Holy Church of Light will take your lives. Young man, do you think you're from the Holy Church of Light just because you say so? Son Gigi shouted. Besides, we've never heard of the Radiance clan. Are you using the Holy Church of Light's name to cheat us? Chuli sneered. Who in Li dynasty would dare to pretend to be a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? He took out a token from his pocket and held it up high. Open your dog eyes and take a good look. The token in his hand was square. One side was engraved with a huge mountain, and the other side was engraved with a sun that shone brightly. He raised the token and activated the divine light technique. The token emitted a gentle white light that made his hand almost transparent. It was especially eye-catching under the setting sun. The crowd started to murmur and discuss among themselves. No one dared to pretend to be a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Firstly, the Holy Church of Light was the leader of the 4 major sections. Secondly, the Holy Church of Light's disciple token was unique. When the heart technique of the divine light scripture was activated, it would emit such a light that no one could imitate. Son Gigi frowned and his face darkened. Chuli kept the token and scoffed. What else do you have to say? Others might be afraid of the Holy Church of Light, but we're not. Son Gigi said coldly. Even if you're a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, we have to move away just because you say this is your territory? Isn't the Holy Church of Light too overbearing? You took the token and walked around the city, saying that every place belongs to the Holy Church of Light. Do you expect everyone to give up? Chuli scoffed. So, you're going to deny it? I'm not denying it. The Holy Church of Light has gone too far. We don't agree. Son Gigi scoffed. You have guts, Chuli said loudly. You can really fool people. Look at what this is. He took out something else from his bosom. It was a letter. He threw it to Son Gigi, and the letter floated in the air. Son Gigi frowned, his heart trembling. This skill was refined and profound. It was not something that a young lad should have. It seemed like he was a genius from the Holy Church of Light. The most annoying thing about the Holy Church of Light was that they had an endless stream of genius disciples. A middle-aged man next to him reached for the letter. The middle-aged man quickly withdrew his hand and flung it away. The power coming from the envelope was like fire. His hand felt like it was being burned the moment he touched it. The pain was unbearable. Chuli scoffed. What a joke. Are you afraid that I'll harm you? The Holy Church of Light won't use such despicable methods. Son Gigi snorted and reached out to take the letter. There was nothing wrong with his hand. The inner energy gathered in his palm slowly dissipated, and he became even more fearful. He opened the envelope and took out a piece of paper. His expression immediately turned ugly. Chuli raised his voice and scoffed. This is the Radiance clan's land deed. What else do you have to say this time? The middle-aged man next to him leaned over to take a look and snorted. Who knows if your title deed is real or fake? Chuli said impatiently. You fellas are always speculating about the Holy Church of Light with your crooked ideas. We can't be bothered to use such despicable methods. Can't you tell if it's real or fake? I can't tell. The middle-aged man scoffed. Chuli said, That's because you haven't seen the real deal. You don't have the title deed, yet you dare to invade this place. How dare you? Whose power are you relying on? He glared at Son Gigi. I'm only wasting my breath because I don't want to kill people. Son Gigi, what are you talking about? What? You're pushing it too? Huh, Ben Lai? Son Gigi scoffed. You don't know what's going on. Does the Holy Church of Light always kill people and bully the weak? Bully the weak? Chuli scoffed. I'm afraid that some fellas know they're weak, but still want to die. This is the Windstorm Association's territory, not the Radiance clan's. You're mistaken. I won't see you out, he said, determined to be stubborn. Chuli frowned. You're relying on the roaring tiger clan's power, aren't you? Humph. It's good that you understand. Sun Jiji said. The roaring tiger clan isn't afraid of the Holy Church of Light. Is the roaring tiger clan not afraid because of the white tiger sect? Chuli curled his lips. The white tiger sect is nothing. How dare you rely on their power? How ridiculous. I'll count to 10. If you don't leave, I'll make a move. 10. Sun Jiji scoffed. I'll count to 3. If you don't leave, don't blame us for being rude. 3, 9, 2, 8, 1, 7. Sun Jiji shouted. Men, take him down. 24 men surrounded him in an instant. They brandished their blades, swords, fists, and palms. All of them attacked him at once. 6. Chuli's body moved swiftly. All of their attacks missed. 5. Chuli performed timed steps and dodged 2 attacks. 4. Chuli crouched and evaded several punches. These men were acquired and innate masters. Even if he stood still and let them attack him, they would not be able to hurt him at all. Sun Jiji hurriedly shouted, Elder Sun, Elder Lu, make your move. 3. Chuli was still skillfully dodging the attacks as he counted. 2 elders flew out of the residence. Their eyebrows were white and their eyes were as clear as lightning. They threw 2 punches in the air. 2. Chuli gently dodged and evaded the 2 punches. Interesting. The 2 old men harumphed. They approached and threw out 2 more punches. 1. Chuli used timed steps and appeared behind them in an instant. Swoosh! His sword flashed. One of the elders was stabbed in the back. The tip of the sword pierced through his heart. The other elder quickly turned his head and threw a punch. Chuli faced the fist force and stabbed his sword. Swoosh! The tip of the sword pierced through the fist force and instantly pierced his fist. Oomph! The elder groaned. His face turned red. His fist was pierced by the tip of the sword, and he was in extreme pain. He gritted his teeth and threw a left punch. Chuli threw a left punch too. Bam! The elder flew out and crashed into the stone lion. Chuli followed up with another punch. Bam! The elder tried his best to dodge. A fist mark appeared on the stone lion. It was so clear that it was branded. Sun Jiji was shocked. Chuli was able to leave such a clear fist mark on the hard stone lion from 10 meters away. The strength of his fist force was obvious. Bam, bam, bam. Chuli threw 3 punches in one breath. The elder dodged 2 of them. He was too weak to dodge the last one. He flew again and hung on the wall. He could not move anymore. Chuli turned his head and glanced at the crowd. They could not help but avoid his gaze. Sun Jiji, are you leaving or not? Chuli asked coldly. Sun Jiji gritted his teeth and looked at the miserable state of the 2 elders. One had a sword in his chest and was most likely dead, while the other was limp and weak. Even if there were 2 more elders in the sect, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Chapter 787. Chuli nodded in satisfaction. A wise man submits to circumstances. Leave now and don't take anything away. What? Sun Jiji glared at him. Chuli said, have you been occupying it for so long? Don't cross the line. Sun Jiji scoffed. The Windstorm Association is not that easy to occupy. Chuli laughed in disdain. You're asking for it. Do you think the Holy Church of Light's territory is easy to occupy? I'll count to 10 more. If you don't leave, I'll kill you. 10. Sun Jiji scoffed. Aren't you afraid of dying from overeating? 9. We can leave, but we have to take some important things with us. 8. If not, we'll fight to the death. You won't be able to get away with it. 7. Someone, come into the house and help me move my things. Sun Jiji shouted. 6. Chuli came to the entrance of the mansion and quietly glanced at them with his hand on the hilt of his sword. The people inside are moving our valuables. Leave now, Sun Jiji shouted. 5. Chuli smiled. He suddenly appeared in front of Sun Jiji. With a flash of his sword, the tip of his sword was already in front of Sun Jiji's throat. You! Sun Jiji's face darkened. He did not dare to move. He did not expect Chu Li to attack him. They were so close, and Chu Li's body movement technique was faster than expected. He could not dodge. 4. Chu Li finished counting and said, the people inside, listen up. If you don't come out, I'll kill your association leader. 3. He moved the tip of his sword, and a drop of blood seeped out of his throat. Sun Jiji's body stiffened. His life was at the mercy of this guy. Seeing how he killed so quickly, he was not trying to scare him. Come out. Come out now. The middle-aged man shouted. Footsteps could be heard from inside. A group of people rushed out and stared at Chu Li aggressively. 2. Chu Li said another number. Sun Jiji scoffed. Everyone come out, Chu Li said. 1. As soon as he finished, he suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of the young man who ran out. He stabbed him with his sword. Ah! The young man screamed as he was stabbed in the heart. The next moment, Chu Li appeared in front of another young man and killed him with another swing of his sword. I've counted to 10, and you guys still haven't left, Chu Li said calmly after killing another person. He killed people like slaughtering chickens. Everyone was terrified. Go, 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 Sun Jiji shouted. Chu Li scoffed. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. He sheathed his sword. The people he had just killed were all wicked people who deserved to die. Killing them was a good way to establish his authority. Leading everybody out, Sun Jiji turned around and bellowed. Just you wait. Roaring Tiger Hall will not let you go. Chu Li waved his sword. Again, Lu Tua Chao Si by Sun Jiji gritted his teeth and strode away. Everyone crowded around him and soon disappeared. Chu Li suddenly appeared by the small lake in the backyard of the residence. He looked at the clear surface of the lake and scoffed. How long do you plan to hide? The small lake was about 100 meters in circumference and didn't look very big. There was a small boat gently moving on the lake. The lotus flowers were scattered, and there were fish leaping out of the water from time to time. The surface of the lake was clear, and it was clear that there was flowing water. The water from the lake flowed past the rockery and formed a small stream that flowed around the forest. Chu Li picked up a pebble and tossed it out lightly. Bang! The surface of the water exploded as if a large stone had crashed into it. Then, a person leaped out of the lake like a fish. He stepped on the small boat and leaped into the forest next to it. Chu Li tossed another stone at it. Bang! That person stopped in midair and crashed into the surface of the lake, splashing water in all directions. After the splashes fell, the lake quickly returned to its calm state. A young man floated on the lake, motionless as if he was dead. Chu Li waved his hand, and the young man quickly floated over. This was the wonder of the divine light technique. The control of the inner energy outside the body far surpassed that of ordinary heart techniques. Even the cloud-slashing power could not compare. The young man approached. He had an oval-shaped face and an ordinary appearance. Chu Li waved his hand again, and the young man flew out of the lake and landed on the ground. Chu Li slapped the young man's face and woke him up. Chu Li uttered, "Get lost." The young man gritted his teeth and glared at him. He endured the pain in his body and staggered away. He flipped over the wall and left the residence. Chu Li scoffed. This guy wanted to fish in troubled waters. He wanted to wait for Chu Li to let his guard down and secretly poison him. Chu Li was being merciful by only slapping him. However, whether he could resist the corrosion of the divine light technique would depend on his luck. He walked around the residence. No wonder Sun Jiji was so distressed. There were indeed many good things hidden in the residence. There were 2 secret rooms filled with treasures, antiques, calligraphy, ink, and a small box of banknotes. He was not too interested in these, but he could enjoy himself with money. It was a joy. He also found an underground prison, where 3 old men were locked up. The 3 of them had hair like withered grass that reached their shoulders and covered their faces. Iron chains as thick as a thumb pierced through their shoulder blades and locked them inside the wall. Their martial arts were crippled, and they were considered useless. Chu Li opened the door of the prison and walked in. The prison was damp and had a strange stench that made one want to vomit. Chu Li sealed his sense of smell and walked in front of the 3 men. The 3 men were locked in one place and were about 10 meters away from each other. They could not get close, but they could talk. "Young man, are you new here?" The 3 men glared at him. Although they had lost their martial arts, their eyes were still full of killing intent and fierceness. Chu Li glanced at them. "This place belongs to the Radiance clan. I've chased away the Windstorm Association." "The Radiance clan? The three men glared at him. Chu Li could see the anger and hatred in their minds. They could not wait to kill him. They were originally imprisoned by the Radiance clan and not the Windstorm Association. After the Radiance clan was destroyed, no one cared about them. After the Windstorm Association took over the place, they did not release the three men hastily. They were not short of food anyway. Chu Li asked, "What evil have you done to be locked here by the Radiance clan?" The three men snorted angrily. Chu Li could see it in their minds. These three men were the top bandits in the martial arts world. They had killed countless people and plundered the world to obtain their wealth. The Radiance clan did not kill them because they wanted to get their savings. The three of them deserved to die 10,000 times for their crimes, but they were able to live until now because of their treasures. Chu Li frowned. "If you won't tell me, then you can starve to death." Chu Li scoffed. "I won't send you food anymore." He turned around and left. Wait. The iron chains rattled. An old man pushed aside his disheveled hair and revealed his lean face. "Young man, the three of us were imprisoned here because we offended a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. If you let us go, we'll give you 100,000 taels of silver. What do you think?" Chapter 788. That's right, 100,000 taels. The Radiance clan's entire army has been annihilated anyway, so no one will know about us. It's been 10 years now, so there's no loss in letting us go. 100,000 taels is too little. Chu Li shook his head. "Then how much do you want?" 1,000,000. "What?" The three of them widened their eyes. Chu Li said, 1,000,000 each for the three of you. Kid, are you crazy? The three of them shouted angrily, but they were panicking deep down. The entire Radiance clan had been annihilated, so there should be no one left who knew about the three of them. If he didn't know their background, how could he call out 1,000,000 in one go? Chu Li scoffed, "Whether you give it or not, I won't be able to eat today. Are you really a disciple of the Holy Church of Light?" "Yes, Outer Mountain disciple." "Then swear to Virokana that as long as we give you money, you'll let us go." "Let you go?" Chu Li shook his head. "Apart from paying, you have to serve me for 50 years. 50 years, the three of them cried out. The thin old man shouted, "Little brother, you really know how to joke. The three of us won't live for more than 50 years. If you follow me, you'll naturally survive." Chu Li said. The three of them shook their heads and laughed. If they were still in the outland of the past, they would be able to live for 100 years, let alone 50 years. However, now that their martial arts were all crippled, they did not have many years left to live. That was why they wanted to hand over a portion of their money, leave this dark place, and live happily for a few years. Chu Li said, "It's fine if you're unwilling." "Of course we're willing," the three hurriedly said. "Swear an oath," Chu Li said lazily. "If you run away after you've recovered your martial arts, I won't hold back." "Don't worry, we'll keep our promises," the trio hurriedly said. Chu Li waved his hand. "I swear." The three of them raised 3 fingers and swore to the heavens. Chu Li learned their names: Ko Qiong, Lu Shu, and Feng Wuji. Chu Li returned to the secret room and took out a treasure sword to cut off their chains. "Take care of yourselves first. Take a shower and clean your hair," Chu Li instructed them before he left the dungeon, ignoring their hysterical screams and laughter as they ran out. Chu Li went into his study room and started reading books greedily. 2 hours later, the 3 old men appeared outside his study, freshly cleaned up. Chu Li nodded his head in satisfaction. They were not muddle-headed. They were smart and experienced. Even if they did not know any martial arts, they would still be able to find this place in no time. Ko Qiong was tall and thin. He had a lean face and looked amiable. Lu Shu had a big face and a short body, which made him look a little comical. Feng Wuji had a square face and looked rude and overbearing. The 3 of them stood in front of Chu Li and behaved themselves. Now that they did not have any martial arts, Chu Li was on the chopping block, and they were like meat on the chopping block. Naturally, they had to be obedient. However, deep down in their hearts, they still looked down on Chu Li. They felt that he was a young boy with an unlikable appearance. It would be difficult for him to have a bright future in the Holy Church of Light. Moreover, if he was really favored, he wouldn't have been sent here. The Holy Church of Light secretly controlled 4 of the 10 most prosperous cities in the Li dynasty, while the other 3 sects controlled 2 cities each. Gale City belonged to the White Tiger sect. 10 years ago, the Holy Church of Light had sent people to establish the Radiance clan in Gale City, but it was destroyed overnight. It was said that the other 3 sects had joined forces. For the past 10 years, the Holy Church of Light had not sent anyone here. It seemed that they had become obedient. Unexpectedly, they suddenly sent someone here again. Sending only one person was too obvious. Chuli put down the book and said, "I'll help you guys recover your martial arts first." The 3 of them were overjoyed, but also a little doubtful. Their martial arts had been crippled for 10 years. Their meridians had long since withered like an ordinary person's. They would need to rebuild their foundation and then cultivate from the beginning. It was estimated that they would not be able to recover their martial arts in this lifetime. Chuli could not be bothered to talk to them. He did not have a good impression of these 3 people. In his opinion, he should just kill them. They had sinned so much that they deserved to die 1,000 times. He kept them alive because he did not have many subordinates he could use. They had to take care of everything personally and work hard. How could they have the mood to cultivate martial arts? If they wanted to climb up, the most important thing was still martial arts and meritorious deeds. They had to use both methods to climb up Great Light Peak and become an inner mountain disciple. Then, they would have to keep climbing to become a branch leader, a patrol, an altar leader, and a priest. He performed the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique on the 3 of them and used the spiritual energy of the life and death scripture to nourish them. Then, he allowed them to circulate their respective heart techniques. His inner energy was transferred to them and converted into their own inner energy. His inner energy was endless. It would not make a difference. Their martial arts were covered in a day, and they had once again entered the Grandmaster's boundary. "Thank you, clan leader." The 3 of them bowed in gratitude. Chuli sat on the armchair in the main hall. He looked at the 3 of them and scoffed. "Are you grateful to me, or are you thinking of rebelling against me and running away?" "We wouldn't dare." The 3 of them were shocked and quickly gave him a fist salute. "Umph, are you afraid or unwilling?" Chuli said coldly. "You have the heart of a tiger and a wolf." The 3 of them quickly lowered their heads and were secretly shocked. This young man was not easy to fool. He could see through their thoughts. Chuli said, "You should get to work. Don't forget 50 years. "Yes." The 3 fists saluted. "Go and order table dishes first. Then, find out about the situation in the Roaring Tiger clan. They'll probably support the Windstorm Association." Chuli said. "Yes." The 3 fists saluted and left. Chuli returned to the study. The secret Guardians Hall had collected a lot of information about the Li dynasty. However, the Li dynasty in the information was different from the real Li dynasty. He wanted to understand it through books. After a while, Chuli put down the book. He took out 3 strands of hair and used the all-seeing divine skill on them. Then, he shook his head. These 3 people were really troublesome. They had already escaped far away. In a flash, he appeared hundreds of miles away. Ko Cheong was sitting under a tree. He was chewing on a roasted chicken in his left hand and a pot of wine in his right. He would occasionally take a sip of the wine with a look of enjoyment on his face. Chuli coughed softly and stood in front of him. The roasted chicken in Ko Cheong's hand fell to the ground with a thud. He was stunned. Chuli said, "You're enjoying yourself. I'll let you enjoy yourself." He then pointed a finger at Ko Cheong's chest. Ko Cheong was about to move, but the finger force had already arrived. He suddenly turned over and fell to the ground. He writhed on the ground with a hideous look on his face. He was in extreme pain. Chuli suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind Lu Shu. Lu Shu was still desperately rushing to get as far away as possible. At this moment, his back was suddenly hit by a finger. Instantly, his body felt like it was being torn apart. He let out a roar and fell to the ground. The pain on his body changed again. Then, it turned into thousands of ants gnawing on his body. It also felt like a scorching flame. He fell to the ground and writhed with all his might, trying to relieve the pain. Chuli looked down at him and shook his head. Then, he disappeared again. The next moment, he appeared behind Feng Wuji. Feng Wuji was riding on a horse. There was another horse following behind him. The two horses were taking turns to travel. Chu Li suddenly appeared on the other horse and rode side by side with Feng Wuji. Feng Wuji's eyes widened. Just as he was about to escape, Chu Li's finger force shot toward him. Feng Wuji groaned and fell from the horse. He rolled on the ground and let out a low growl. Chu Li looked down at him expressionlessly. Chapter 789. Public House. Chu Li suddenly appeared in the East Garden. Li was cultivating in the courtyard when the lanterns were lit. When he saw Chu Li, he stopped his fist technique and pointed at the bag on Chu Li's back. "What's this?" Chu Li tossed the bag to him. Li quickly caught it and opened it. His eyes widened. Wow, so many treasures. The bag was filled with antiques, calligraphy, and paintings. Chu Li said, "I know you like these. I'm giving them to you for fun." He had already placed a batch of them on his island. The island was now under Lu's care. He would occasionally come back to stay. After sending most of the Windstorm Association's assets back to the island, he picked out some rare antiques for Liu. Liu shook his head. "How can I accept such valuable things?" Chu Li smiled. "You really don't want them?" "No." Liu shook his head and caressed the antiques one by one. He laughed. "But I can play with them for a few days. These are not from the Ji dynasty." "Where did you get them?" "The Li dynasty," Chu Li said. Liu picked up a painting and opened it slowly. His face was filled with infatuation. He sighed. A master is indeed a master. The way he wields his brush, the way he uses the ink, the spirit, it's really admirable. Chu Li smiled. "How's your martial arts training going?" "It's all right." Liu smiled. "I perfected the innate mastery." He said nonchalantly, "I'm just training for fun. I don't think about using it. It's just to kill time." Chu Li said, "If your martial arts is stronger, you'll be able to protect yourself. It's not like you don't want to go out all the time. Although the city is safe, there are always accidents. It's better to train your martial arts." "I've been training." Liu waved his hand and said impatiently, "Brother Chu, you're getting more and more boring. All you do is train." Chu Li smiled bitterly. Liu picked up the scroll and wrapped it up. He gestured for Chu Li to wait. He quickly went into the house and brought out a hot pot that emitted a rich aroma. "Try this. You're lucky." Chu Li smiled. He admired Liu's culinary skills the most. Liu removed the lid of the pot, and the aroma became even thicker. Chu Li's mouth watered. "This is snow chicken and mushroom soup, the most authentic delicacy." Liu laughed. "It's all thanks to you that I was able to obtain this snow chicken and snow mushroom from the 100-her courtyard. Others won't be able to taste it." Although Chu Li was not in the public house, his power did not decrease, but instead increased. Currently, he was still the chief of Glory's Will courtyard. As Chu Li's best friend, Liu's benefits and treatment were far beyond that of a rank 7. In fact, he was even comparable to a rank 3. Knowing that Liu was a glutton, Liu would always send him a portion of the delicacies in the mansion. Chu Li took the spoon from Liu and stirred the soup. He smiled and said, "I've been through a lot lately. I haven't tasted anything good, so I've been cultivating in isolation. Finally, I can enjoy myself." Sigh. Liu shook his head. "You really live a tiring life. You spend all day training, and killing people. It's a thrilling life. It's not as comfortable as my life." In the beginning, Liu wanted to live a colorful life. However, he realized that he was a coward and was not cut out for it. Hence, he settled for being his own scribe and stayed in the East Garden, living a quiet and comfortable life. Now that he had Chu Li's protection, his days were even more carefree. No one cared about him, and he even had people to flatter and take care of him. It was wonderful. Chu Li smiled. "I can't help it. I was born to be a laborer." "You really have a tiring life." Liu shook his head and smiled. "Look at your island now. If you stayed in the public house and became the owner of your own island, how happy would that be?" Chu Li smiled and nodded. He was indeed like a galloping horse, running without stopping for even a moment. A crescent moon hung in the sky like a bright hook. Chu Li arrived at a Flying Cloud restaurant in Gale City. The restaurant was very lively. The first floor was noisy, and the second floor was not quiet either. He went straight to the third floor. There were not many people on the third floor. The seats by the window were not full. Chuli sat at a table in front of the window and ordered a few dishes and a pot of wine. He drank the wine and ate the dishes leisurely. When he was nervous, he would talk to Liu so that he could enjoy a peaceful life. He was very envious of Liu's peace of mind. After a while, he could regain his calm. Since the assets of the Windstorm Association had been seized, Sun Jiji would definitely go crazy, and the Roaring Tiger clan would not let this matter rest. Chuli guessed that they would probably break into the residence to search for the treasured artifacts, antiques, and banknotes. Since he had already moved away, one could imagine how the Windstorm Association would feel. When he thought of this, Chuli smiled inexplicably. These people must be going crazy now. He guessed that the people of the Windstorm Association would definitely rush over to find him. If they did not dare to do so, they would drag the people of the Roaring Tiger clan along with them. The Roaring Tiger clan probably did not take him seriously and would definitely make a move. He looked around and shook his head. Sun Mingwei did not follow him. Logically speaking, someone should have secretly protected him since he was left here alone. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous. They could not possibly send him to his death, right? However, the truth was that no one was following him. The omniscient mirror had been observing his surroundings. Even with his sensitive senses, he did not notice anything. Previously, the omniscient mirror could not detect Sun Mingyue's presence. As the omniscient mirror merged with the Great Light Scripture and Mahavairocana's Immobility Scripture, its power had greatly increased. After achieving the Great Light Scripture, it was able to detect Sun Mingyue's presence. Was the Great Light Scripture so strict with the Outer Mountain disciples that they did not secretly protect them and relied solely on their own abilities without caring about their lives? This was too shocking. Who knew how many geniuses would be killed? The next time Li Rulin came, Chuli decided to ask her about it. As he was thinking about this, he suddenly heard hurried footsteps coming from downstairs. Four men strode up the stairs and stopped in front of Chuli. Chuli glanced at Sun Jiji and said, "You're really not afraid of death." Sun Jiji said in a low voice, "Zhao De, you've crossed the line." Chuli said, "Is that so? These three are the helpers you found?" The three middle-aged men looked average, but they were all grandmasters. Their auras were wild, like ferocious tigers coming down from the mountains, ready to pounce at any time. It made people shiver involuntarily, and they did not dare to look them in the eye. A middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "Little brother Zhao, why must you be so overbearing?" Chuli glared at him. "Do you want to fight?" "Little brother Zhao, if you hand over the Violent Wind Gang's assets, we can let it go," the middle-aged man said. Chuli said, "Then let's fight." "So little brother Zhao doesn't want to hand it over?" The middle-aged man snorted. Chuli said impatiently, "If it were you, would you hand it over?" The middle-aged man said, "If you don't hand it over, you'll end up like the Radiance clan 10 years ago." Chuli frowned. "You're responsible for the destruction of the Radiance clan, right?" "No." The middle-aged man shook his head. Chuli said in disdain, "You're not a man if you don't take responsibility for what you've done." "Less? Gather? Aspire to join?" "Zheng? To offer congratulations in astonishment, big brother. Follow him? Make a decision?" AOC Twicky and Bandage 1 EXIN 1 Liao. Crumble corpse dirty, pay nightmare, flee sincerely? Scourge Huani Lai. Beautiful hero fresh stool Pol Chuli said, "How arrogant." Chapter 790. Chuli said in disdain, "Pretentious. Stinking brat, you're courting death." The other middle-aged man glared at him and slapped him. Ding! The sword on Chu Li's table flashed, and the cold light pierced his palm. The sound of metal clashing could be heard, as if the sword had stabbed into iron. Chu Li felt the recoil from the tip of his sword and scoffed. "You're from the White Tiger sect? Umph. Other people might be afraid of the Holy Church of Light, but the Roaring Tiger clan isn't." The middle-aged man who extended his palm laughed coldly. "Today, I'll let you know the rules of Gale City. You'll only die if you offend the Roaring Tiger clan, even if you're a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." Chu Li's sword flashed again, aiming for his throat. Ding! The middle-aged man didn't dodge. allowing him to stab him. Once again, the sound of metal clashing rang out. Chuli was surprised. The sun cultivating white tiger portrait that he cultivated was said to be the antique study of the white tiger sect. Although he did not cultivate it to a high level, it was still far beyond the reach of an average person. He was impervious to swords and knives, but the sword of a grandmaster was different from an average person's sword. He would not be able to block the sword of a master whose skill was equivalent to his. This middle-aged man's cultivation was weaker than his, but he was able to block his sword. It could be seen that his body tempering was tyrannical. Oomph. The middle-aged man sneered and stared at him in disdain. You dare to come to Gale City with such abilities? You really don't know how to spell the word death. Ding, 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 ding. Chu Li's sword flashed, so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to follow. Like the sound of rain hitting the banana leaves, the middle-aged man did not take a step back. He either waved his palm or lowered his head, dodging the tip of the sword aimed at his eyes. Chu Li sheathed his sword abruptly, and the ringing stopped abruptly. The middle-aged man snorted arrogantly. What do you think? Chu Li scoffed. You're quite good at taking a beating. Since you know how powerful we are, get lost. Gale City isn't a place where the Holy Church of Light should be. The middle-aged man said coldly. Chu Li replied, I'm here on orders, so I won't be going back. Then you're courting death. The middle-aged man glared at him. Others might not dare to kill the disciples of the Holy Church of Light, but the Roaring Tiger clan isn't afraid. Chu Li said snappily, You're just bluffing, huh? Gather? The whore's knife closed in an instant. Masturbation? Suppress them in panic? Winding bridge? Gun ghost window. It covered the field. You're courting death. The middle-aged man glared fiercely at him, like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey, and his face was filled with murderous intent. Chu Li shook his long sword and scoffed. Who dares to kill me? His impudent gaze swept across the four of them, including the people in the restaurant. He shouted, The Holy Church of Light's Zhao Day is here. Who dares to kill me? The entire Flying Cloud restaurant fell silent. There were discussions, but they were quickly silenced by their companions, and their voices became softer. In the end, the entire restaurant was almost completely silent, and no one spoke. Gale City was the White Tiger sect's territory. However, the Holy Church of Light's power had been growing stronger over the past 2 years. Now that the disciples of the Holy Church of Light had appeared in Gale City, it was obvious that they wanted to expand their territory. However, the White Tiger sect allowed them to do as they wished. The two sects were going to fight each other openly and covertly. If anyone else were to get involved, they would definitely die a horrible death. Arrogant to the extreme, the middle-aged man was furious. He did not expect Chu Li to be so arrogant. As soon as he shouted these big words, the entire restaurant fell silent. He was awe-inspiring. If the White Tiger sect could not suppress his arrogance, their status in the hearts of the martial artists would plummet. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Then, he punched with his right fist. Roar! It sounded like a ferocious tiger's roar. Chu Li suddenly got up from his chair and used time steps to instantly appear in front of the middle-aged man. The tip of his sword pierced through the fist force and pierced his right fist. At the same time, he punched with his left fist. The left fist was inches away from him, and it hit his heart. Bang! The middle-aged man was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Bang! Chu Li followed up with another punch with his left fist. The middle-aged man sped up in the air and crashed through the window on the north side. He flew out of the restaurant and disappeared. One sword and two fists happened in a flash. Before the others could react, their companion had already been injured and flown away. Good job. The expressions of the other two middle-aged men changed slightly. As expected of a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, Chu Li had figured out their actual situation in an instant. The White Tiger power that they cultivated was the best in defense. They were invulnerable, and even a grandmaster could not hurt them. However, this torso tuning technique had a flaw. Before reaching the 6th level, their inner energy could not leave their body and they could not attack from a distance like a grandmaster. They could only fight in close combat and could not attack from a distance. If they wanted to attack from a distance, they would have to temporarily stop using the white tiger power and use other martial arts. However, at the 6th level, their inner energy could leave their body and be used from a distance. They were invincible. The power of the white tiger power was amazing, but it was too difficult to cultivate. One could only become an official disciple after reaching the 6th level. Otherwise, they would only be an outer disciple. They were disciples of the Roaring Tiger clan, so they were all outer disciples. Chuli stared at them in disdain. You guys can only scare people. Roaring Tiger clan? You're a bunch of trash. What did you say? Trash. Watch my fist. The two men pounced at him at the same time. Bang, bang. Chuli threw 2 divine light fists, and the 2 men took 2 steps back. His expression did not change as he did not hurt them. The 2 men continued to rush at him. He could not hurt them anyway. Bang, 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 bang. Chuli kept throwing punches and forced them to retreat again and again. In the end, the speed of his punches was far faster than the speed at which they could catch their breath. The 2 men kept retreating from the south window to the north window. The 2 men were so overwhelmed that they could not breathe. This situation was no different from an innate master fighting a grandmaster. They were extremely aggrieved and finally could not help but throw another punch. Roar! The fist force approached Chuli as the tiger roared. Chuli disappeared in a flash and reappeared in front of the 2 men. Bang! Bang! 2 divine light fists hit the 2 men's chests, and they flew out. They spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and flew out of the restaurant through the broken window. Chuli clapped his hands and returned to his seat in a flash. He then sized up Sun Jiji. Sun Jiji's expression turned gloomy. Chuli said, "Is this your backer? How unreliable. Why don't you join me, elder son? I have the Holy Church of Light behind me, which is much more powerful than the White Tiger sect. You won't be happy for long," Sun Jiji said coldly. "The White Tiger sect will not let this go." Chuli curled his lips. "You won't give up until you see your coffin. Fine, get lost." He waved his hand impatiently. Sun Jiji scoffed and turned to leave. Chuli called out, "Innkeeper, come here." A thin old man ran over with a smile on his face. "Young Master Zhao, what can I do for you? I'll compensate you." Chuli took out 100 taels banknote from his pocket. The thin old man quickly waved his hand and smiled. "There's no need for that. It's an honor for the Flying Cloud restaurant to have a meal with you, young Master Zhao. We can't accept your money." Chuli stuffed the banknote into his hand. "Less. Gather? Rice past to cattle? Yes, yes, thank you, young Master Zhao." The innkeeper saw that he was impatient and knew that he was not being polite, so he tactfully thanked him. Chuli waved his hand, and the innkeeper carefully retreated. Chuli left the Flying Cloud restaurant after eating and drinking to his heart's content. It was late at night, and the streets were even livelier. Chapter 791. The residence looked normal on the outside, but the yard was filled with a terrible stench. The residence had a total of 5 entrances, consisting of the front yard, the inner courtyard with 3 entrances, and the backyard. The backyard and front yard were fine, but the inner courtyard with 3 entrances in the middle had been splashed with feces and was uninhabitable. What annoyed him more was that the study was the most thoroughly damaged. All the books had been taken away, leaving only empty bookshelves on the ground. He gritted his teeth. When he looked at Sun Jiji's Mind and Flying Cloud restaurant, he did not see any of this. He had only sent people here to search for valuables. His subordinates had acted on their own to vent their anger. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He would settle the score with them sooner or later. He went to a gazebo on a rockery in the backyard and sat cross-legged on a stone table. He remained motionless and solemn as he continued to cultivate the Great Light Scripture. Once he cultivated the Great Light Scripture, he would be cultivating 3 scriptures at the same time. After cultivating the Great Light Body, his abilities had multiplied and far surpassed his previous strength. If he encountered Feng Qingyang, he would be able to defeat him. His abilities had already reached the level of a priest, although he was the weakest one. However, priests did not rely purely on martial arts. They also needed to contribute and climb up by stepping on their fellow disciples. Only then would they be able to convince the masses. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were promoted with both martial arts and contributions. If he could build the Radiance clan and stand firm, he could almost be promoted to become an Inner Mountain disciple. Then he would advance from an Inner Mountain disciple to a branch leader, a patrol, an altar leader, and finally a priest. His spirits were lifted when he thought of this. He suddenly realized that he had really become Zhao De. His thoughts were completely in Zhao De's way, and he had almost completely abandoned his original thoughts. The heavenly demonic power was truly mysterious, as it could change the position of the host and guest. In his cultivation, a night passed in the blink of an eye. The next morning, when Chuli woke up, Ko Chiong and the other two were already standing in front of the gazebo. They were haggard, dirty, and messy as if they had returned to the dungeon. When they saw Chuli open his eyes, they immediately fist saluted and bowed. "Greetings, clan leader." Chuli glanced at them lazily. Finally willing to come back. "Clan leader, we've sinned." The three of them bowed so quickly that their heads almost touched the ground. They experienced the feeling of living a life worse than death. Every 4 hours, every attack lasted for a quarter of an hour. In one night, they had been tortured several times. It was as if they had taken a trip to hell. They no longer dared to underestimate the situation and could only struggle to run back. Chuli scoffed. "If it weren't for the fact that I'm in dire need of help, I would have crippled all of you. We will definitely obey Hall Master's orders." The three of them were shocked. Last night's torture and pain that was worse than death was nothing compared to the crippling of their martial arts. If their martial arts were crippled as well, they would rather die. "I can spare you from the death penalty, but I won't let you off. I'll release you tomorrow at this time. Now go to work." Chuli waved his hand. He didn't have a good impression of these three bandits. If they weren't cunning, then they were cunning. None of them were good people. To deal with them, kindness was useless. Only intimidation was useful. Yes, the three nodded helplessly. They were all smart people. When they saw the situation in the mansion, they immediately went out to find someone to clean it up. It took them an entire morning to clean it up. During the day, they were no different from ordinary people. The intense pain did not flare up, and they did not delay their work. However, at night, they once again experienced the pain and torture, rolling on the ground and screaming. Chuli ignored them and turned a deaf ear to them. He focused on cultivating his martial arts. Windstorm Association and Roaring Tiger Clan did not make any moves. Chuli knew that they must be looking for a master to kill him in one fell swoop. It should be a master from the White Tiger sect. It was midnight. The moon hung high in the sky, and its clear light shone down. Roaring Tiger Clan was a residence with 5 entrances. It was bathed in the moonlight as if it was in a deep sleep. Suddenly, a long howl shook the night sky and woke up the Roaring Tiger Clan. Then a voice was heard. "The Holy Church of Light, Radiance Clan, and Zhao De are here. Trash of the Roaring Tiger Clan. Hurry up and welcome him." The voice spread out like waves. It was continuous and clearly spread to every corner of the Roaring Tiger Clan. In fact, half of Gale City could hear it. When the disciples of the Roaring Tiger Clan heard the voice, they quickly got up and rushed to the main hall. Half of the disciples who stayed behind in the Roaring Tiger Clan rushed to Chuli. Chuli stood outside the Roaring Tiger Clan. He was dressed in white and held a long sword. He stood under the moonlight with his hands behind his back. Unfortunately, his face ruined the artistic conception. If he was handsome, he would be like a painting or a poem. 12 disciples surrounded Chuli, and 3 of them were grandmasters. Chuli glanced at them and shook his head. "You're all trash." One of the elders scoffed. "Zhao De, what do you want?" "I couldn't sleep at night, so I came to visit the Roaring Tiger Clan." Chuli scoffed. "You're a bunch of trash indeed. Don't try to argue." The elder scoffed. "Don't blame us for being ruthless since you're so presumptuous. Attack." As soon as he finished speaking, he flew toward Chuli. The other 2 grandmasters and 9 perfected innate masters rushed toward him too. Chuli disappeared in a flash. Time steps was similar to imminent skyline. He appeared behind a perfected innate master and punched him. Then, in a flash, he sent another person flying. These perfected innate masters were defenseless in front of him. They were sent flying in the blink of an eye and were severely injured when they landed on the ground. Their white tiger power could not withstand Chu Li's divine light fist. These trash are an eyesore. I'll deal with them first before I deal with the three of you. Chu Li scoffed. How dare you claim to dominate Gale City with such little skills? What a joke. As soon as he finished speaking, he punched the elder. With a bang, the elder took 2 steps back. He did not seem to be affected. Chu Li shook his head. White tiger power specializes in taking hits. Let's see how long you can last. As he spoke, he threw punches. Bam bam sound could be heard. The 3 of them were forced to retreat as they could not get close to him. Bam 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 bam. Chu Li did not believe that the white tiger power was so incredible. He threw more than 50 punches in one go. Puffed. The elder suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked dispirited. Chu Li smiled and threw another punch. The elder was sent flying like a rag doll. He landed heavily on the ground and did not move. He had already passed out. The other 2 middle-aged men roared and threw punches at the same time. They knew that if they continued to be beaten, they would end up like the elder. Roar! 2 ferocious tiger roars were heard. The 2 men charged their attacks. Chu Li suddenly disappeared from where he was and appeared behind them. Before they could react, he had already punched them in the back. Stop! A shout was heard. A tall and thin figure whizzed over and appeared in front of them in the blink of an eye. Roar! The ferocious tiger's roar shook the sky. It was as if a real ferocious tiger had appeared. He threw a punch at Chu Li, and the fist force instantly reached Chu Li's chest. Chu Li punched back. Bam! Chu Li took a step back. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the tall and thin young man in front of him. He looked ordinary, but his eyes were bright as if they could ignite people. White Tiger Sect. Chu Li scoffed. White Tiger Sect's Tan who? The tall and thin young man scoffed and threw a punch. Roar! The ferocious tiger roared. The fist force seemed to ignore space and arrived in front of him in an instant. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and appeared behind Tan Hu. Tan Hu collided with his body. Ding! The tip of the sword pierced his back. It was as if his back was made of iron and stone. A huge force came from his sword. Chu Li retreated to relieve the force. Tan Hu was unforgiving. He turned around and threw a punch. Chu Li countered with the divine light fist. Bam! The 2 men took a step back at the same time. Chapter 792. He was the rising star of the White Tiger Sect, and he was faintly regarded as the top youth expert. This time, when they heard the news of Roaring Tiger Clan asking for help, saying that the Holy Church of Light was going to rebuild the Radiance Clan, the sect felt that this was no small matter. They had to kill this momentum and destroy the Holy Church of Light's hope. They quickly investigated and found out that Zhao Dai was a young man. Moreover, he was not well known in the Holy Church of Light and was a nobody. They reckoned that the Holy Church of Light was testing the waters. However, to be on the safe side, they still sent Tan Hu, the #1 youth expert, to kill Zhao Dai. Tan Hu was full of confidence before he came, but after he fought with Chu Li, his confidence was gone. This fellow was young, but he was already a top-notch master who was on par with him. The Holy Church of Light's martial arts were slightly superior to the White Tiger sects. If the 2 of them were to fight, it would be difficult to say who would win and who would lose. It was most likely that both sides would suffer. Chu Li scoffed. The White Tiger sect is quite capable after all. That's all for today. I'll visit again another day. Zhao Dai, I'll give you a piece of advice since you're pretty good at martial arts. Gale City isn't a place where you should stay, Tan Hu said in a deep voice. Chu Li scoffed. I'm the clan leader of Radiance Clan. I'm going to stay in Gale City. Tan Hu stood with his hands behind his back. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. This is the White Tiger sect's territory. So what? Chu Li scoffed and turned to leave. Tan Hu furrowed his brows as he stared at Chu Li's retreating figure. Could it be that the Holy Church of Light was determined to take over Gale City? The Holy Church of Light had always had many geniuses, so they were not stingy with them. They adopted the policy of letting these geniuses live and let them live. However, there were not many masters like Zhao Dai in the Holy Church of Light. It seemed like the Holy Church of Light valued Gale City a lot. In that case, they had to eliminate the Holy Church of Light's greed and prevent Zhao Dai from gaining a foothold. The next night, the night was as dark as ink, with no stars or moon to be seen. Chu Li was cultivating in the gazebo when two silhouettes silently floated into the residence. One of them was Tan Hu, and the other was a tall and thin old man. His face was as red as a date, and his eyes were as sharp as lightning. With a torch in his hand, Tan Hu went to the woodshed first and lit it up. Chu Li frowned and appeared in front of Ko Chiong and the others in a flash. He coughed softly. They were meditating on the carpet in the front hall when they were awakened by Chu Li. Chu Li glanced at the three of them and said in a low voice, "All of you, leave the residence first." "Hall master?" Ko Chiong hurriedly said. Chu Li scoffed. "A top-notch master has arrived. You'll only be courting death if you go. Hurry up and leave." "Yes." The three quickly nodded. What they feared the most now was death. They had just seen the light of day again and recovered their martial arts. They were just about to enjoy their lives. It would be such a waste to die like this. Tan Hu stared at the burning woodshed. Chu Li appeared behind him in a flash and threw a punch at him. Bang! Tan Hu turned around and threw a punch. Before the ferocious tiger could roar, the two fists collided. Chu Li and Tan Hu each took a step back. Under the illumination of the blazing fire, Tan Hu wore a sarcastic smile on his face. "I'll burn down all the houses here. Why would the Radiance clan still be here when the houses are gone? As long as I'm here, the Radiance clan will be here." Chu Li scoffed. Tan Hu shook his head. "You'll definitely die today." The red-faced elder appeared behind Chu Li like a ghost and struck him with his palm soundlessly. Chu Li had the omniscient mirror, so he had already seen through his silhouette. A cold light flashed on his waist. Ding! The tip of Chu Li's sword pierced the center of his palm as if it had hit a rock. An extremely overbearing inner energy came from the blade, but it was burned by the divine light technique and turned into his own inner energy. Chu Li struck with his sword again. Ding, 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 ding. Chu Li's sword flashed like lightning, but the tip of the sword was always hit by the red-faced elder's palm. Chu Li's face darkened as he swung his sword continuously. He did not expect the elder's palm technique to be so amazing that it was not inferior to the divine light sword. In fact, it was even better. The overbearing inner energy kept surging into him. In the beginning, it was burned and transformed by the divine light technique. Later on, the technique could not keep up with the transformation. Chu Li suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind Tan Hu. Ding! Tan Hu blocked the tip of Chu Li's sword with his palm as well. The overbearing inner energy coming from the blade was weakened by 2 notches. "Masters Junior Ming," Tan Hu called out. The elder threw a punch at Tan Hu. As the ferocious tiger roared, Tan Hu threw a punch as well. When the two fist forces met in the air, they suddenly turned into an illusory, ferocious tiger that shot toward Chu Li like a shadow or fog. Chu Li was surprised. He had never seen such a wonderful technique. The tip of his sword stabbed forward, but it was empty. It did not seem to be a fist force at all. However, a strange inner energy came from the blade. It was as cold as ice water and seemed to be solid. It was abnormally pure, and he could not neutralize it. Since he did not want to use his heavenly demonic orb, he took a step back to buy some time to catch his breath. The illusory ferocious tiger suddenly flashed and hit him like a ray of light. Bang! He felt as if a giant hammer had hit his chest, and he was sent flying. He read from their minds that this was the white tiger killing skill, but he did not expect it to be so powerful. The overbearing inner energy was wreaking havoc in his body. It suppressed the divine light technique and continuously destroyed his internal organs. The advantage of the divine light body was that even though it was being ravaged, it was still tough and indestructible. His body began to emit a gentle glow. The glow flickered as it fought against the inner energy and continuously neutralized the damage. You do have some skills. Masters Junior Ming scoffed and threw a punch at Tanhu again. Tanhu threw a punch as well. When the two fist forces met again, they condensed into a faint shadow and crashed into Chu Li. The speed of this phantom was incomparably fast. He activated time steps and disappeared from his original spot in a flash, reappearing 20 feet away. The phantom of the white tiger followed him like a shadow. As soon as he reappeared, it crashed into him. With a muffled bang, he was sent flying again. Again, Masters Junior Ming said. Chu Li disappeared in the air and appeared 30 feet away in a flash. Then, he flashed again and appeared 100 feet away. After another flash, he disappeared from their sight. After him, Masters Junior Ming scoffed. We must kill him today. Tanhu smiled. Masters Junior Ming, there's no need to rush. Burn this place down, and he'll have to come back himself. That works too. Masters Junior Ming nodded. Tanhu picked up a torch and continued to burn the houses. One by one, the houses caught fire. In the blink of an eye, 5 houses had been set ablaze and turned into raging flames. The blazing fire illuminated their faces. Chu Li had not appeared yet. Suddenly, the flames came from afar, and a shout was heard. Zhao Dei of the Holy Church of Light's Radiance clan is here. Masters Junior Ming's expression changed slightly. It's the Roaring Tiger clan. Tanhu gritted his teeth. What a vicious fellow. Zhao Dei was obviously trying to hurt both sides. They had set this place on fire, so Zhao Dei wanted to burn the Roaring Tiger clan. Although this place was big, it was still slightly smaller than the Roaring Tiger clan. Continue burning. Masters Junior Ming scoffed. If I don't kill him today, how can I return to the sect? As a dignified sect elder, he would be too ashamed to face anyone if he could not even kill a junior disciple of the Holy Church of Light. All right, Tanhu gritted his teeth. He lit the houses one by one. Chu Li's shout was heard from afar. Listen up, White Tiger sect. If you don't come over, I'll kill everyone in the Roaring Tiger clan. Masters Junior Ming's eyes flickered, but he shook his head helplessly. Go over. If they still did not go over after Zhao Dei's shout, not only would the Roaring Tiger clan be disappointed, but the entire Gale City would also be disappointed. The White Tiger sect prestige would be greatly damaged. Zhao Dei, don't run if you dare. Tanhu shouted. The two of them rushed over like a gust of wind and arrived in front of Chu Li in the blink of an eye. Chapter 793. P.S. Update complete. Am I going to become Shao Sigung? The two men appeared in front of Chu Li like a gust of wind and glared at him. Chu Li tossed the torch away and clapped his hands. I'm not afraid of you. If I burn the house down. Zhao Dei, you're no match for us. Tanhu said gently. You won't be able to stay in Gale City. We'll keep hunting you down. Why don't you be tactful and save us some trouble? Chu Li shook his head. Our light body technique is no match for mine. We can't kill me. Do you hide all day long? Tanhu asked. As the clan leader of the Radiance clan, aren't you embarrassing the Holy Church of Light by looking so pathetic? It doesn't matter if I'm embarrassed. Chu Li glanced at the Roaring Tiger clan members. As long as I'm here, the Radiance clan will be here. Tanhu said, I think the Holy Church of Light is using you as a sacrificial pawn to test the waters. Otherwise, why did they only send you? Why didn't they send a few more masters? You wouldn't be in such a pathetic state, right? Chu Li laughed. Tanhu, you're being considerate of me. Tanhu said, I'm being considerate of you as well. It'll save me a lot of trouble if you stop. Impossible. Chu Li stopped smiling and scoffed. Just give up. I won't leave. The Radiance clan won't fall. Tanhu's face darkened. He turned to look at the tall and thin elder. Masters Junior Ming, you're unmoved by force or persuasion. There's nothing we can do. Kill him. The tall and thin elder nodded. The two men each threw a punch. Amidst the roars, 2 white tiger silhouettes appeared and instantly shot toward Chu Li. They were as fast as light and unavoidable. However, Chu Li was already 100 feet away. As soon as they thought about it, Chu Li activated time steps and dodged in advance. Woo! The roars did not stop. Two streaks of light chased after Chu Li. Chu Li dodged left and right. Every step he took was ahead of the two men's thoughts, but it was still strenuous for him. Before he came to the Li dynasty, he thought that the Holy Church of Light would be the strongest in the Li dynasty's martial arts world. After he arrived in the Li dynasty, he realized that although the Holy Church of Light was powerful, it was not as powerful as he had imagined. Chu Li had not paid much attention to White Tiger sect before this. The sun-cultivating White Tiger portrait originated from the Zheng dynasty's White Tiger Cave. Due to a natural disaster, the White Tiger Cave was destroyed and its martial arts were almost extinct. However, it still gave rise to a few branches, and the White Tiger sect was one of them. He had also cultivated the sun-cultivating White Tiger portrait before. Although its power was strong, it was much weaker than the Great Light Scripture and the Titanium Temple's divine powers. In that case, he felt that the power of the White Tiger sect's martial arts was limited. Now that he had come into contact with the White Tiger sect, he realized that he had made a huge mistake. The White Tiger sect was able to become one of the four major sects because its martial arts were extremely powerful. This White Tiger killing skill was one of the best, and its speed was incomparably fast. If it weren't for the fact that he could see through their thoughts in advance, he wouldn't have been able to evade them with the time steps. Their light body technique was also very good, so they followed closely behind Chu Li, unwilling to let him go. Chu Li circled around the roaring tiger clan and dodged the two tiger silhouettes' pursuit. He was in a sorry state. Tan Hu and Masters Junior Ming each commanded a tiger silhouette to chase after him. One went up while the other went down, and the other went left while the other went right. Their teamwork was so great that even if Chu Li could read their minds, he would still fall into a dilemma at times. Bang! Bang! Two muffled sounds were heard. Chu Li entered a house through a window and then came out again. However, the two tiger silhouettes disappeared and crashed into the house with a muffled sound. Since the two of them could not enter in time, they lost control of the two tiger silhouettes. Chu Li had just sighed in relief when another two tiger silhouettes appeared and chased after him again. Chu Li scoffed and used the same trick again by entering the house. Then, before the two of them could enter the house, he went out again. Bang, bang. Two muffled sounds came from inside the house, and the tiger silhouettes disappeared again. Two more tiger silhouettes appeared right after the tiger silhouettes disappeared. Chu Li went into the house again. One of the tiger silhouettes followed him in. Chu Li was not in a hurry to leave the house. Even after the tiger silhouette blew up a table, he still did not go out. Tan Hu suddenly entered the house. As soon as he entered, he was greeted by a blinding silver light. Ding, 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 ding. He waved his palms. Some of the sword tips pierced his palms while others pierced his body. In a short while, more than 10 holes appeared on his clothes. However, he was safe and sound as he entered the house and pounced on Chu Li. Chu Li dodged in a flash and continued to swing his sword. Tan Hu's body movement technique was extremely fast. He arrived in front of Chu Li in a single step. Ignoring the sword force, he threw a punch and hit Chu Li with a roar. Chu Li threw a punch. Bang! The two fist forces collided, and both of them took a step back. Chu Li suddenly dodged and went out through the window. At this moment, the tall and thin elder came in. The two of them entered and exited at almost the same time. It seemed like a coincidence, but Tan Hu and the tall and thin elder knew that it was not a coincidence. This simple-looking Zhao Dea was extremely shrewd and sensitive. He was slippery and difficult to kill. Chu Li dashed out of the house and went into the night. By the time Tan Hu and the tall and thin elder ran out, Chu Li had already disappeared. Go after him and kill him, the tall and thin elder said angrily with a gloomy face. Tan Hu nodded. Chu Li's cultivation level was about the same as his, but Masters Junior Ming could not kill him. It was really frustrating. It was like an ant that could be killed with one stomp. However, it did not die no matter how much one stomped on it. It was infuriating. The two of them turned into a gust of wind and rushed out to where the Radiance clan was. However, Chu Li was not there. The two of them mobilized Roaring Tiger Clan's men to search for him. They searched Gale City in the middle of the night, but they still could not find Chu Li. Chu Li ran out of the city and meditated in a forest as he thought of a way to deal with them. Tan Hu and the old man with the surname Meng were very difficult to deal with. What was worse was that the white tiger power was very durable. Sneak attacks were ineffective, and he could not end the fight quickly. Once they started fighting, they would be entangled, and the white tiger killing skill would be enough to make him suffer. He only had a chance of winning if he used the heavenly demonic power. However, he did not want to use the heavenly demonic power, even if there was no one around to monitor him. After thinking about it, he could only continue to fight with these two and see who could outlast the other. The next morning, he appeared at the Radiance clan's residence. The fire in the residence had long been extinguished. The 5 houses in the front courtyard, including the woodshed, were burned down. The rest of the houses were unharmed. He randomly found a house and waited for Tan Hu and the others to find him. In the evening, the person he waited for was not Tan Hu, but Li Ruolin. As soon as Li Ruolin appeared in front of the residence, Chu Li approached her in a flash. He frowned and said, "Miss Ruolin, why are you here?" Li Ruolin was dressed in a light purple gown and had a white veil over her face. Her face could not be seen, but her charming eyes were attractive enough. She looked at Chu Li from head to toe and asked gently, "Are you okay?" "Of course I'm okay," Chu Li said proudly. "The White Tiger sect is powerful, but they can't do anything to me." "That's good." Li Ruolin nodded gently. "Miss Ruolin, you shouldn't have come here." Chu Li looked around anxiously and waved his hand. "Come in quickly." Chapter 794. Chu Li noticed that she was looking at the ruins and quickly said, "Those people used all sorts of despicable means to force me to leave. Last time they splashed feces. This time they set the place on fire. I don't know what they'll do next." "Are the masters from White Tiger's sect here?" Li Ruolin asked seriously. Chu Li replied, "Tan Hu. There's also an elder with the surname Meng." "Tan Hu?" Li Ruolin's curved eyebrows furrowed. "Let's talk inside." Chu Li extended his hand. The two entered the main hall. Chu Li raised his voice. "Hurry up and serve them tea." Ko Cheong quickly came in with a cup of tea. He served the tea to the two of them with a smile before he quietly left. "This is?" Li Ruolin asked curiously. She could tell that Ko Cheong was a grandmaster, but Zhao Dai was ordering him around like a servant. Chu Li said, "I subdued them. They're not good people. There's no need to be nice to them." "They're grandmasters after all," Li Ruolin said. "They'll be of great help." "They're not of much help." Chu Li curled his lips and said disdainfully, "They're good at serving tea and running errands. They're useless and can't be counted on. Miss Ruolin, don't you feel bored?" He pointed at his face. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes at him and elegantly removed her veil, revealing her charming face. Chu Li stared at her face and smiled. Li Ruolin felt a little uncomfortable under his gaze. She coughed softly and said, "I thought you'd secretly investigate the situation first. I didn't expect you to make such a big fuss as soon as you arrived. You're afraid that others won't know about it. You've caused too much trouble." Although the Radiance clan had been destroyed for 10 years, there were still spies from the Holy Church of Light in Gale City. Li Ruolin had inquired about Chu Li's situation from her informants and found out that he had barged into the Windstorm Association as soon as he arrived. He had chased out the members of the Windstorm Association and occupied the Radiance clan's main hall. After that, he had attacked the Roaring Tiger clan. Although this had boosted the prestige of the Holy Church of Light, he had also made too many enemies for himself and became the target of public criticism. No matter how powerful his martial arts skills were, he would not be able to withstand the joint attack of the masters of the White Tiger sect. He had been too reckless. According to her plan, if she wanted to restore the Radiance clan, she would first have to secretly disturb the Windstorm Association and the Roaring Tiger clan. Then, she would secretly assassinate them. Once they were in a mess, she would then take the opportunity to rise up and quickly consolidate the general situation. The current Holy Church of Light was not the Holy Church of Light from 10 years ago, so the White Tiger sect would not dare to do what they did 10 years ago. He did not expect Zhao Dai to use such a simple and crude method. Chu Li scoffed. The Holy Church of Light needs to be imposing and domineering so that everyone knows that we're back. It's too dangerous for you. Li Rulin frowned and said, the saint won't send anyone else here. How are you going to defend yourself against the White Tiger's sex encirclement? It's okay, Chu Li said indifferently. If I can't win, I'll just run. My light body technique is good. The White Tiger's sex light body technique is also very powerful. Li Rulin shook her head and said, their tiger leaping over the mountain ravine light body technique is extremely fast. Time steps isn't as fast as theirs. You mustn't be careless lest they catch up to you. I know. Chu Li nodded. He realized that the White Tiger's sex light body technique was more powerful than he had expected. Initially, he thought that the martial arts of sex that focused on body refinement were too strong and fierce, but lacked agility. However, the White Tiger's sect was different. I'm worried about the White Tiger killing skill now. Chu Li frowned and said, it's very difficult to deal with. I'm here on the Saint's orders to give you the time blade technique. Li Rulin took out a crystal-clear jade tag that was the size of a palm and had no pattern. She handed it to Chu Li. The time blade technique's inheritance is inside this. The Saint said that you'll be able to activate it. Li Rulin's delicate hand merged with the white jade tag, and there was no difference. Chu Li took it and smiled. Thank you, Saint. I'm glad that you don't blame the Saint. Li Rulin smiled. Anyone else would have complained about the Saint's ruthlessness. She had left him alone in the White Tiger's sex territory without any support. He had to rebuild the Radiance clan on his own. No matter how she looked at it, she was deliberately making things difficult for him and sending him to his death. As an outsider, Li Rulin felt that the Saint had gone overboard. However, Zhao Dei did not complain at all. It was hard to understand. Chu Li smiled and said, why would I blame the Saint? I feel that it's very exciting and satisfying. Every time I fight with them, my martial arts improves a lot. My martial arts is much stronger than before. That's good. Li Rulin nodded gently. She also noticed that Chu Li's cultivation level had improved by another level. She sighed to herself. A genius was a genius. He was different from ordinary people and had improved so quickly that it left people speechless. However, it was no wonder that he struggled in such an arduous environment. His potential was naturally forced out, so it was not surprising that he improved so quickly. Chu Li placed the white jade tag on his forehead. Boom! A figure appeared in the void of Chu Li's mind with a muffled sound. A Buddha, a demon, and a mirror were cultivating in the void of Chu Li's mind. He was multitasking now. Even on normal days, he could maintain the void of his mind and cultivate the Great Light Scripture, Mahavirokana's Immobility Scripture, and the Heavenly Demon Scripture. This figure's body was as clear as crystal. His flesh had disappeared, and only his meridians could be clearly seen. After the figure appeared in the void of his mind, he made an action of throwing a flying blade. As he did so, red lines appeared in his meridians. Then, the figure made another action of throwing a flying blade. Another string of red lines wrapped around his meridians. The figure threw a flying blade for the third time. The red lines were even more complicated and dense. Anyone who saw it would feel goosebumps. The fourth time he threw a flying blade, the red lines were even more complicated. It almost circled his meridians twice. It was not easy to throw a flying blade like this in a short period of time. The figure continued to throw flying blades. Each time, it was more complicated than the previous time. On the sixth time, two flows of inner energy appeared in his meridians. One was red, while the other was blue. The two flows of inner energy circulated in his meridians at the same time. It was like two rivers flowing in their own channels before they finally converged. On the seventh time, the routes of the two flows of inner energy were complicated. On the ninth time, the two flows of inner energy intertwined and moved forward. However, they did not touch each other. They were clearly separated but moved forward side by side. It was almost impossible to do. Chu Li slowly opened his eyes and looked impressed. This light blade technique was many times more complicated than his eternity blade. He had experienced its power. Feng Xingyang's light blade technique was only at the third level. but its power was already shocking enough. If he could push it to the 9th level, he wondered how fast it would be. It made him restless. Seeing Chu Li's excited expression, Li Ruolin could not help but pour cold water on him. This light blade technique is similar to the divine light sword technique. The routes of channeling energy are complicated. However, it's much more complicated than the divine light sword technique. It's very difficult to cultivate. Chu Li said, "This is good. It's powerful too. With this, I won't have to be afraid of the white tiger killing skill anymore." The white tiger killing skill is more powerful. Li Ruolin quickly said, "You can only suppress the white tiger killing skill if you reach the 4th level." Chu Li nodded. "I'll cultivate to the 4th level." Li Ruolin looked at him and finally nodded. Chapter 795. Miss Ruolin, did you come here just to give this to me? Chu Li handed the white jade tag back to her. Li Ruolin extended her delicate hand and took it. She nodded lightly. "It's mainly because of this. There are a few spies in the city who are prepared to tell you. You can ask them for help if you need any help. Without spies, you're deaf and blind." Chu Li waved his hand. "Forget it. We don't need them." Li Ruolin looked at him in confusion. Chu Li replied, "They're useless. The only right thing to do is to fight. As long as we can defeat the White Tiger sect, the Radiance clan will be able to rise again. If we can't, everything else will be useless." "Can you defeat them?" Li Ruolin shook her head. "I can't beat him now." Chu Li scoffed. "I can deal with one of them alone, but I won't be able to take on 2 of them at once. That being said, it doesn't matter. As long as I master the light blade technique, defeating them will be a piece of cake. If you can't reach the 4th level, it's useless even if you throw your saber at them." Li Ruolin said. "Tan Hu is the top youth powerhouse of the White Tiger sect. His cultivation level is extremely high, and his White Tiger power is also at a very high level. He's invulnerable." Chu Li furrowed his brows and scoffed. "He's a difficult fellow to deal with. He's not completely impervious to swords and spears. The White Tiger power consumes a lot of inner energy as well. My cultivation level is higher than his, so I can keep suppressing him until he runs out of inner energy. That won't be easy. The White Tiger sect's light body technique isn't weak. My Qigong is better than his." "All right," Li Ruolin nodded. "There's still Elder Ming. His name is Ming Wu, and he's been famous for a long time. His cultivation level is even higher than Tan Hu's, so you'll have to be careful of him." Chu Li's face darkened, and he slowly nodded. Meng Wu was indeed stronger than Tan Hu, and his cultivation level was a notch higher than Meng Wu's. Meng Wu had joined forces with Tan Hu to attack Meng Wu, and the duo's White Tiger killing skill made Meng Wu suffer a lot. "As long as I master the light blade technique, I'll be able to defeat them." Chu Li scoffed. Li Ruolin said, "You can't master the light blade technique in a short period of time, so you shouldn't fight them recklessly." "It's easy to cultivate this," Chu Li said. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes at him. This fellow was arrogant enough. If it really was that easy, why didn't even the Holy Lady reach perfection, lacking the final layer? Even the most powerful Guardian King, Sun Haofeng, could only reach the 5th level. He could not reach the 6th level no matter what. Chu Li said, "Miss Ruolin, you must leave quickly. It's very dangerous here." "I came here quietly," Li Ruolin replied. Chu Li shook his head. "They must have sent someone to keep an eye on this place. You'll be discovered the moment you get close. Hurry up and leave." "You really don't want those spies?" "No." "All right, I'll leave now." Chu Li stared at her face reluctantly. "Although I don't want you to leave, it's really dangerous here. You should sneak out from the back door. I won't be seeing you off." "Yes." Li Ruolin put up her veil again and said softly, "Zhao De, don't fight them recklessly. If you can't beat them, just run." "I'm not stupid. Of course I'll run." Chu Li laughed. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes at him and walked out gracefully. Then she skimmed out of the backyard. Her clothes fluttered as she skimmed along the ground as if she was riding on the wind. She exited the alley and arrived at the main street. Then she blended into the bustling crowd and quickly exited the town gate. She headed east. As she skimmed, She recalled the saint's instructions to see what Chu Li was thinking. She wanted to know if he was afraid of danger and wanted to escape or face it head-on. She asked the saint why she insisted on sending Zhao De to Gale City, because it was too dangerous. The saint said that it depended on his luck, his temperament, and whether he was a dragon or a worm. Li Ruolin sighed as she thought about this. The saint was good at everything except that she treated human lives like ants and treated them like child's play. Not only did she not protect a genius among geniuses like Zhao De, but she also threw him into a dangerous place and put him in a dangerous situation. It was a little crazy. The saint seemed to be able to read her mind. The Holy Church of Light did not need to win with numbers. They only needed to find a master who could become an enlightened master. Li Ruolin understood the saint's painstaking effort and could only suppress her sympathy for Zhao De. It was said that the saint had a narrow escape and struggled to become a saint who would take over the Holy Church of Light in the future. The Holy Maiden was looking for the next Holy Maiden or a Law King. In the history of the Holy Church of Light, 2 priests had become enlightened masters. If Zhao De was powerful enough, he might become an enlightened master. Li Ruolin's light body technique was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she had traveled more than 30 miles. She suddenly thought of something and stopped moving. She looked at the forest on the left and said, "Come out." 2 silhouettes appeared 20 feet away from her, looking at her quietly. One was a tall and thin young man, while the other was a tall and thin old man. They were Tan Hu and Meng Wu. "Who are you?" Li Ruolin asked with a frown. "Miss, you're from the Holy Church of Light, right?" Tan Hu asked with a fist salute. Li Ruolin frowned. "Who are you?" "I'm Tan Hu." Tan Hu shook his head. "We're going to offend you, miss." "What do you want?" "Kill you." Li Ruolin's charming eyes flickered. "Kill me to anger Zhao De?" "Miss, you're smart." Tan Hu nodded. Li Ruolin asked, "You think you can kill me?" Tan Hu smiled. "My cultivation level is higher than yours, and I have Master's Junior Meng with me. You won't be able to escape." "That's not necessarily true," Li Ruolin scoffed. She disappeared from where she was and reappeared 20 feet away. Then, she disappeared into the forest in another flash. Tan Hu shook his head. Meng Wu leaped into the forest. 2 dull thuds could be heard. Li Ruolin flew out of the forest. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and her face was covered by a white veil. No one could tell what she looked like, but her charming eyes seemed to have dimmed. She took out a jade porcelain in midair and tossed a red pill into her mouth. Thud! She landed heavily on the ground. She looked slightly disheveled, but her veil was still covering her face. Tan Hu put his hands together and pulled them apart. He clenched his fists and punched them. With a roar, his fists formed a tiger silhouette that shot toward Li Ruolin. Li Ruolin's clothes fluttered as her aura increased. She leaped and appeared 40 feet away. "Go after her." Meng Wu scoffed. "She's taken the rebirth pill. She can only last for 15 minutes. The 2 of them chased after Li Ruolin like 2 gusts of wind. Li Ruolin fluttered as if she was riding on the wind. Her speed was incredibly fast, and Meng Wu and Tan were getting further and further away from her. Tan Hu scoffed. With a dull thud, a tiger silhouette fell from the sky and entered his body. His speed suddenly increased. He was getting closer to Li Ruolin and was about to catch up to her. When Li Ruolin saw him approaching, she was about to unleash the secret technique of great light. Bang! Tan Hu suddenly threw a punch, which collided with a fist force from beneath his feet. A dull thud was heard, and his speed slowed down. Chu Li suddenly emerged from the forest and walked side by side with Li Ruolin. When Li Ruolin saw him, she was shocked. "Why are you here?" Chu Li replied. "I was worried about you, so I've been following you. I didn't expect these 2 to be so despicable. I'm going to kill everyone in the Roaring Tiger clan when I get back." "Despicable indeed," Li Ruolin scoffed. Chapter 796. Zhao De, you're just in time. Tan Hu laughed. "We were just about to look for you." Chu Li replied, "You can't kill me. So why are you looking for me? You're wasting your time." "That might not be true." Tan Hu laughed. "We won't let you escape this time. Anyone can brag." Chu Li said impatiently, He reached out and placed his hand on Li Ruolin's waist. Li Ruolin trembled and glared at him with her charming eyes. Chu Li pretended not to notice and sped up. Li Ruolin felt a sudden push on her waist, and her body was pulled forward. The scenery in front of her was moving backward at a speed faster than her. She sighed to herself. A month ago, she could defeat him with one hand. Today, a month later, he was much stronger than her. The world had changed so strangely that it was hard to fathom. Chu Li's cultivation level was higher than Tan Hu's. With the divine light body and time steps, he was able to maximize his speed. Even if Tan Hu used his secret skill, the distance between them was still increasing. Tan Hu snorted and punched his fists together. A tiger silhouette appeared between his fists and instantly shot toward Chu Li. Chu Li's divine light fist hit the tiger silhouette, but did not receive any force. However, the fist force continued to attack Tan Hu, forcing him to change his position. His body became sluggish, and the distance between them increased again. Chu Li dove into the forest. The tiger silhouette followed him and soon crashed into a tree. A muffled boom was heard. The tree seemed to have been hit by a boulder and was about to be uprooted. Chu Li held Li Ruolin in his arms and shuttled through the forest like a fish. Through the observation of the omniscient mirror, he knew the road ahead of time. He knew where the branches were, where to turn, and where to find gaps. Therefore, he did not slow down at all. Tan Hu also entered the forest, but he fell further and further away until he gradually disappeared. His angry roar could be heard from afar. Chu Li smiled. "Miss Ruolin, how's my escaping ability?" Li Ruolin saw that he was walking through the forest as if it was flat ground and did not slow down at all. It was obvious that his reaction speed was far beyond that of an average person. He was indeed a genius favored by the heavens. Chu Li turned to look. 200 meters away, Meng Wu's tall and slender figure appeared. He stepped on the treetops like a gust of wind blowing through the woods and gradually approached Chu Li and Chu Li. Chu Li frowned and said, "This old man is really difficult to deal with. There are 8 grand elders in the White Tiger sect, and he's one of them." Li Ruolin said in a low voice, "Don't underestimate him. He made a name for himself a long time ago. He's been keeping a low profile all these years because he rarely fights as an elder of the White Tiger sect. His cultivation level will only get stronger." Chu Li asked, "He's an elder with this level of cultivation?" He was a little disappointed. Meng Wu's cultivation was slightly higher than his, but not by much. It was the same feeling he had when he had first met Fong Qingyang. Li Ruolin scoffed. "These old fellows are different from young people. Young people usually reveal 70% of their abilities, but these old fellows usually hide 30% of their abilities and only reveal 70% of their abilities. They won't show their fangs unless it's a critical moment. Be careful of him." Chu Li smiled. "But no matter how powerful he is, we can still escape with our lives. You haven't learned the secret technique of great light." "I'm afraid." Li Ruolin shook her head. Chu Li asked, "Why didn't the saint teach me the secret technique of great light?" "Maybe she's afraid that you'll use it," Li Ruolin said. "The secret technique of great light can reduce one's lifespan. That's still better than dying immediately," Chu Li said. Li Ruolin remained silent. She was not sure either, but she knew there must be a reason. The saint could not have forgotten. As the two talked, Meng Wu continued to close the distance between them. He was only 100 meters away now. Chu Li suddenly dodged and made a turn. In Meng Wu's eyes, Chu Li disappeared in an instant. He paused for a moment before he caught up with him again. Chu Li kept changing his figure. The mountain range they were in was endless. Chu Li kept shuttling through the forest without stopping. He would sometimes turn left and sometimes turn right. His direction was constantly changing. After running for half a day, Chu Li stopped. The two of them stood at the peak of a mountain facing the wind. The sun shone brightly in the sky, but it was not scorching hot. The strong wind whistled, and Chu Li's clothes fluttered as he looked at Li Ruolin. Li Ruolin's injuries were almost healed. The strong wind made her clothes stick to her graceful body, but could not lift up her veil. He had experienced the strangeness of this veil before. It could block prying eyes, and the omniscient mirror could not see into one's heart. He did not expect it to block the wind as well. Miss Rulin, I'll see you off here, Chuli said. Li Rulin nodded. Zhao Dai, thank you. Chuli waved his hand and smiled. You don't have to be so polite. It's only natural. If something happened to you, I really wouldn't know what to do. Li Rulin rolled her eyes at him. Are you going back now? Of course I can't go back. Chuli scoffed. I have to find a place to cultivate and master the light blade technique. Then, I'll settle the score with them. If I go back now, I'll be suppressed and hunted down by them. It'll be too frustrating. Yes, cultivate your martial arts first. Li Rulin nodded. Chuli said, Miss Rulin, you have a lot of things to do. You should leave first. I think this mountain is good, so I'll stay here and cultivate. I'll stand guard for you, Li Rulin said. Chuli waved his hand and smiled. I'm not cultivating the great light scripture. I'm cultivating the light blade technique. I don't need to stand guard. Li Rulin stared at him and slowly nodded. She sighed to herself. This guy is more straightforward than slow-witted. He had such a good opportunity to stay with me, but he chose to let it go. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. He's so insensitive. It was not that she had a good impression of Chuli. She only thought that he was silly. Even if she did not like him, she would take care of him for a few days to repay him for saving her life so that he could cultivate in peace. Yet he rejected her. This was really, when she thought about this, she said, All right then, keep an eye on Mengwu. I'll go back and report to the saint. Okay. Chuli looked reluctant to part with her as he stared into her charming eyes. Li Rulin did not move. She waved her hand and fluttered away. Soon, she disappeared into the dense forest. Before she entered the forest, she turned around to look at Chuli. He was still standing there in a daze, as if he would always be there. At this moment, she suddenly felt a little touched. It was a wonderful feeling to have someone who liked her so sincerely. Chuli watched as her figure disappeared. He felt a little lost. Although he did not have feelings for Li Rulin, he still felt a little melancholy when such an attractive beauty left. With a beauty by his side, he felt that the world had become so beautiful. Time passed so quickly. He quickly suppressed his thoughts and went to the stone wall at the peak of the mountain to cultivate the light blade technique. He was proficient in the eternity blade technique, so he did not need to practice his accuracy anymore. He had long reached the realm of becoming one with the blade and was extremely accurate. This was the most basic and time-consuming step in cultivating the flying blade. He had already solved it, so all that was left was the combination of the heart technique and the flying blade. This was why he was confident that he could master it quickly. He had already reached the realm of becoming one with the blade, so he did not need to waste time on training. Moreover, he had a unique advantage when it came to complex heart techniques. Due to his strong spiritual power, he could circulate his inner energy with ease, so he could easily activate the heart technique no matter how complicated it was. Chapter 797. P.S. Update complete. I've really become Shao Sigong. I'm so sorry. From the first level to the 5th level, it was a piece of cake for him. However, it was not so easy to reach the 6th level. It required 2 types of inner energy to circulate at the same time. It was not a problem for Chu Li, as he could multitask. The key was where the 2 types of inner energy came from. He realized that the light blade was not powerful enough if he split the inner energy into 2 and had them flow separately to the blade. It was not even as powerful as the 5th level. It was obvious that he had cultivated it wrong. The 2 types of inner energy could not be from the same source and needed different types of inner energy. Chuli smiled after some thought. It might be difficult for others, but it was not difficult for him. The 2 types of spiritual energy entered his body. One followed the crescent cryptic, while the other followed the divine light technique. After condensing into their own inner energy, the 2 types of inner energy followed the 6th level of the light blade technique. Chi, with a soft whistle, the pebble in his hand disappeared and reappeared on the stone wall. With a muffled bang, a deep pit appeared on the stone wall. Chuli arrived in front of the stone wall and studied the pit. Although the stone wall was weathered by wind and rain and was not as hard as normal stones, the fact that it was so deep and there were no cracks around the pit showed that the inner energy condensed in the pebble was strong and violent. Such power was worthy of being the 6th level. Unfortunately, he could not use the crescent cryptic because he could not expose it. With that thought, he activated his light body technique and timed steps to the extreme. He was much faster than when he came to Gale City. The next evening, he returned to the thatched cottage on Small Light Peak. Under the setting sun, the small cottage on the peak was dyed a rose color as it stood proudly in the howling wind. He could not help but feel a sense of familiarity when he saw the cottage. The scenery had not changed. He stood in front of the cottage and let out a long whistle. Soon, Lee Rulin fluttered over. She wore a purple gown and a white veil covered her face, revealing only a pair of charming eyes. When she saw Chu Li, her charming eyes flashed, and she asked in surprise, "Why are you back?" "I'm looking for your help, Miss Rulin," Chu Li replied. "What help?" Lee Rulin approached him. Her purple gown fluttered in the wind, and a faint fragrance wafted into his nose. Chu Li gestured for them to enter the house. The two entered the small room that was as warm as spring. One sat on the couch, and the other sat on the stone stool in front of the couch. "There's no one here yet?" Chu Li asked. "Do you like this place?" Lee Rulin smiled and said, "You can keep it here if you like it." Chu Li was surprised. "Can I keep it?" Lee Rulin said, "As long as you make enough contributions, you'll be able to claim this Small Light Peak as your own, and no one else will be able to enter." "What kind of contribution do I need?" Chu Li quickly asked. This Small Light Peak was filled with spiritual energy and was the best place for cultivation. Although it was not as good as the Spirit Crane's Peak, it was still considered a top-notch place in the outside world. "You'll have to ask the saint about that," Lee Rulin said with a smile. "Let's get down to business. While I'm cultivating the 6th level of the light blade technique, I'll need 2 heart techniques," Chu Li said. "You've only learned the divine light technique now, so you'll need another heart technique. You've already reached the 6th level?" Lee Rulin was surprised. Chu Li revealed a proud expression. "It's very fast to learn this. You can't just cultivate heart techniques." Lee Rulin hesitated for a moment before she said, "Accuracy is very important. If you can't hit your target, no matter how powerful your flying blades are, it'll be useless." Chu Li smiled. "I've been practicing flying stones since I was young, so I can hit birds with small stones." "I see." Lee Rulin slowly nodded. Zhao Wei was really lucky. He had trained his aim since he was young, so it was much easier for him to practice the light blade technique. All the disciples in the sacred church had to spend 2 to 4 hours every day to practice target shooting when they practiced the light blade technique. "Can I cultivate another heart technique?" Chu Li asked. Lee Rulin said, "I'll discuss this with the saint. Hurry up and go." Chu Li said, "I'm in a hurry to cultivate the light blade technique, so I can go back and kill Tan Hu and Meng Wu." Lee Rulin pursed her lips into a smile before she nodded and turned to leave. Chu Li sat on the stone bed and cultivated. It was exceptionally quiet as he sat there, and it felt as if time had stopped. He suddenly missed Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi. They should be having dinner in the residence at this time, and it should be very lively, but he was all alone here. There was a knock on the door. Lee Rulin was standing outside. Chu Li went forward to open the door and smiled. Lee Rulin was dressed in a bluish-white gown and stood elegantly under the moonlight. The white veil on her face had been removed, revealing her charming and fair face. "This is the heart technique that the saint gave you. Cultivate it well." She took out a thin booklet from her sleeve and handed it to Chu Li. Chu Li took it and looked at it. The words "Great One Technique" were written on the cover. He flipped through it carefully and shook his head helplessly. Looking at the densely packed red lines, he knew that the saint knew his unique ability very well and that he was good at cultivating complex heart techniques. Lee Rulin pursed her lips and smiled. The Great One Technique is very powerful. Even if it's used alone, it's not something that can be compared to ordinary heart techniques. "Thank you, Saint," Chu Li said. Lee Rulin smiled. The saint said that this heart technique is very compatible with the divine light technique, and it can maximize the power of a light blade technique. Chu Li sighed. It's a little difficult to cultivate. It won't be a problem for you, Li Rulin said. The saint said that you have a chance of perfecting it. Chu Li chuckled. Really? I can cultivate the light blade technique? Yes. Li Rulin nodded. So far, only one person has perfected the light blade technique, and that's the saint. Even the bishop hasn't perfected it. Chu Li puffed out his chest. Then I'll be the second. Li Rulin rolled her eyes at him. Then you should work hard. I'm leaving. I'll bring you food tomorrow. Chu Li quickly replied. Okay. The saint said that you can't stay here for more than 3 days, Li Rulin said. Otherwise, you'll give up. Sigh. All right. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. Li Rulin pursed her lips into a smile and left. Chu Li flipped through the Great One technique and imprinted it in his mind, so he sat on the bed to cultivate. The Great One technique's heart technique was complicated, but it was easy for him. Soon, he had completed a circulatory cycle, and a faint, warm force was produced. After a few more circulatory cycles, the warm force became stronger. When his force flowed through his meridians, it felt like dew rolling on the ground. It was unusually comfortable. He walked out of the house and picked up a small stone to activate the 6th level of the light blade technique. A trace of the divine light technique's inner energy and a trace of the Great One technique's inner energy circulated respectively before converging on his hand. The small stone in his hand suddenly disappeared. TSS. An extremely soft sound was heard. The small stone was embedded in a large rock in the distance. It was almost silent, and the large rock was like tofu. Chu Li was secretly surprised by the speed. It was as if it could travel across space. He picked up another small stone and activated it. The small stone disappeared again, and the next moment, it appeared on a tree. It silently sank into the tree and almost disappeared. Chapter 798. P.S. I'll resume 6 chapters from today onwards. I need everyone's encouragement. Now that he had mastered the 6th level, the remaining 7th and 8th levels would be a piece of cake for him. With his strong spirit, he could activate the 7th and 8th levels no matter how complicated they were. Compared to the 6th level, the 7th and 8th levels were much faster. Once activated, the pebble would hit its target instantly with almost no time lag, and its power was even more shocking. The 7th level was twice the power of the 6th level, while the 8th level was twice the power of the 7th level. Chu Li could imagine that if he were to use this against Tan Hu would not be able to escape. Unfortunately, when he reached the 9th level, he stopped again. The two forces were entangled together, yet they were in harmony. It was like water and fire, yet they were in harmony. It was almost impossible to achieve unless there was a special mental cultivation method that could balance these two forces. Chu Li felt that he might need a third force of inner energy. Unfortunately, he did not succeed when he tried to activate it. It was even more difficult to harmonize the 3 forces of inner energy. The next morning, Li Rulin changed into a peach blossom gown and fluttered over. She looked fresh and pleasant. When she saw that Chu Li was shooting pebbles, they disappeared from his hand in a flash and reappeared in a big rock in the distance. She stood aside and watched in amazement. Chu Li's pebbles were getting faster and faster, and they were all hitting the same spot. Poof! A 1-meter-thick rock was pierced, and the pebble was shot out from the other side. Her charming eyes widened as she looked at him in shock. According to what she knew, the light blade was harder to cultivate as it was too fast and powerful. It was not easy to control the accuracy. Even if it was shot, it would not hit its target and it would be futile. Moreover, the higher the level, the more spiritual and inner energy it consumed. At the 6th level, most people would be exhausted after shooting 2 or 3 blades and no longer have the energy to shoot anymore. However, Chu Li had shot 10 pebbles in a short while and was still full of energy. He did not look tired at all. He was not a genius, he was a freak. Chu Li patted the dirt off his palms and turned to smile at her. Miss Rulin, how's my light blade? This is the 6th level. Li Rulin's clothes fluttered in the strong wind, and her hair was a little messy. Only the veil on her face remained motionless as it quietly covered her face. The 7th level, Chu Li replied. You've already reached the 7th level? Li Ruolin was surprised. Chu Li smiled. I've reached the 8th level, but the stones on the 8th level can't withstand it, so I can only use the 7th level. The power of the 8th level was too strong. Once the internal energy converged on the stone, the small stone immediately exploded. Li Ruolin took off her veil, and a smile appeared on her charming face. I'm here to deliver you a saber. She rolled up her sleeves and revealed her snow-white wrist. Then, she revealed a circle of flying knives around her wrist. They were only as long as an index finger and were as bright as a mirror. Under the bright morning sun, they flashed with a cold light. Chu Li raised his eyebrows, but his gaze fell on her fair wrist. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes at him and took off her wrist guard. There were 6 flying daggers neatly inserted into the wrist guard. She handed the wrist guard to Chu Li and said, "The saint personally gave this to you. Thank you, Saintess." Chu Li took it absent-mindedly. It felt so light in his hand that it was almost weightless. 6 is a little too little. Li Ruolin said, "It's enough. How many blades do you think you can shoot?" The light blade was not used, but once it was used, it would usually kill. Moreover, under full force, one could not shoot more than 6 blades. After 2 or 3, or even 1 blade, one would not be able to shoot more. Chu Li asked, "Do you want a few more?" Li Ruolin said impatiently, "A few. 6 more," Chu Li said. "I'll carry them on my other hand. It's fine with your left hand, but if you use your right hand, it'll delay your speed," Li Ruolin said. Chu Li shook his head. "It's fine. It's so light. How can it be delayed?" "All right, I'll talk to the saint." Li Ruolin suddenly realized that she had a fortuitous encounter and had extraordinary strength. Li Ruolin bid farewell and floated down like a cloud. Soon, the clouds and mist blocked her figure. Soon, she flew 10 miles away and disappeared from the omniscient mirror. Chu Li did not follow the saint to find out where she was. Instead, he settled down and continued to cultivate. The flying blade was light, as if it was weightless and as thin as ice. If it was thrown without inner energy, it would not be powerful at all. It would feel like a needle on a cow's hair and would not even be able to pierce through one's clothes. However, this blade was extremely sharp. When he held it and gently touched a rock, it was like touching a piece of tofu. Fortunately, his body tuning technique was not shallow, so it was not a big deal even if he touched it. If it was an ordinary person, a light touch would cause serious injuries. Wearing it on one's wrist could easily hurt oneself. He immediately activated the 8th level of the light blade technique. The flying blade in his hand flashed lightly and then disappeared. It reappeared 10 meters away and flashed on a 1-meter thick rock. Then, it turned into a cold ray of light and shot another 10 meters away. It drilled into another boulder and disappeared. Chu Li was speechless. What a powerful force. He initially thought that it would penetrate the first rock, but he did not expect it to pierce through it and then into another rock. Such a force was not something that could be blocked by a human body. An excited smile appeared on his face. When he imagined Tan Hu and Meng Wu being hit by this flying blade, he wanted to laugh out loud. He activated the 8th level of the blade technique again. The flying blade in his hand disappeared in a flash and then reappeared in a boulder 20 meters away. A clear ding sound came from the boulder. Then, the 2 flying blades pierced through the boulder at the same time. In a flash, he appeared in front of the flying blades. With a wave of his hand, the 2 flying blades flew into his hands. He carefully examined the 2 flying blades. They were as shiny as new, and there was nothing strange about them. He held the 2 flying blades in his hand. He knew that he would not be able to block them. With such flying blades, how many people in this world could block him? However, the saint had also cultivated it. He was no match for her. The next morning, Li Ruolin appeared again with 2 boxes in her hands. One was a lunchbox, while the other was a dark purple palm-sized box. She handed them to Chu Li. "These are flying blades that the saint gave you. They're called flying snow." Chu Li opened the box and saw 6 small blades that were as thin as cicadas' wings. They were smaller and narrower than the ones he had obtained before. You can hold them between your fingers, Li Ruolin said. Chu Li picked one up and held it between his index and middle fingers. Indeed, he could not see it. Li Ruolin took out a thin booklet and handed it to Chu Li. The saint said that it's enough to cultivate up to the 8th level. However, it'll be better if you can perfect it. The saint only managed to perfect it last month. This secret booklet is the key. Chu Li reached out and took the booklet. The words regeneration technique were written on it. He flipped through it and saw that it was a method of transferring vital essence. It was not a martial arts heart technique. This method of transferring vital essence was usually a nourishing technique to strengthen the body. It was not the same as a martial arts heart technique. Those who cultivated nourishing techniques were usually people who had not built their foundation. This heart technique transferred the most gentle vital essence. After Chu Li flipped through it, he came to a sudden realization and exclaimed, "The saint is really amazing." Chapter 799. Li Ruolin smiled. Other than the saint, you're the first in the Holy Church of Light to reach the 9th level. Ha! Chu Li puffed out his chest proudly. Li Ruolin said, the saint said that since you've reached the 8th level of Lightblade, it's enough for you to protect yourself. It's time to leave for Gale City. All right, I'll leave today. Chu Li kept the purple box and said excitedly, watch how I'll deal with them. He could not wait to return when he thought about suppressing Tan, Hu, and Meng Wu. He smiled. Tell the saint to wait for my good news. I'll make the Radiance clan famous in Gale City. You should be careful, Li Ruolin said. The saint said that Gale City is a complicated place. Don't think that you can gain a foothold just because you can defeat the White Tiger sect. There are many other forces there, and they may not let the Radiance clan be established. Yes, I'll be careful. Chu Li nodded. Li Ruolin looked at him deeply. I'll visit you in a month. Chu Li quickly waved his hand. Please don't. It's too dangerous there. You think I'm a burden, don't you? Li Ruolin frowned. Chu Li smiled. Miss Ruolin, if anything happens to you, how am I going to live? You stay here. I'll be back in a month. All right. Li Ruolin nodded. She felt slightly awkward and turned to leave. She turned into a cloud and left. After Chu Li finished his meal, he activated time steps and left at lightning speed. His face turned gloomy when he arrived at the Radiance clan's residence. The Radiance clan had been reduced to ruins. All the houses had been demolished and razed to the ground. The setting sun dyed the ruins red. The small lake had been filled up, and the backyard was trampled into a mess. Withered flowers and withered leaves were scattered all over the ground. Many trees had been cut in half and were scattered all over the place. Chu Li let out a long howl toward the sky. His howl reverberated throughout Gale City. He then rushed toward the Roaring Tiger clan. In the main hall of the Roaring Tiger clan, Tan Hu sat below, while Meng Wu and another old man with white eyebrows and a face as rosy as a baby sat at the top. The old man was thin, and his beard reached his chest, almost reaching his waist. Master Senior Zhu, we don't have to worry about that guy not coming. Tan Hu laughed and said, if we tear down his Radiance clan, he won't have the cheek to say that the Radiance clan will be rebuilt. If he doesn't regain his dignity, the Radiance clan will be finished. Yes, that's a good move. Uncle Master Zhu stroked his long beard and chuckled. Xiao Hu, you youngsters are so smart to be able to come up with such an idea. Old fogies like us only think about chasing and killing. Tan Hu hastily gave a fist salute and said with a smile, Master Uncle Zhu, you flatter me. I learned it from Master Uncle Meng. Meng Wu waved. Master Wu, Meng Zhu, Master's Meng Wu. Yang Wei sect Zhu Sun Zhu must have. Sect Wu sect. Master's Senior Zhu sighed. The sect is taking this matter very seriously. If I can't take down an abandoned disciple of the Holy Church of Light, I'll be too ashamed to face anyone. Don't worry, Master Senior Zhu. Tan Hu smiled. Tan Hu laughed. However, I've also figured out this fellow's temper. He's proud and stubborn. Now that the Radiance clan has been demolished, he'll definitely rush over. Young people are always like that. Master Senior Zhu stroked his beard. Tan Hu said, His martial arts is slightly better than mine, but he's far behind Masters Senior Zhu and Masters Junior Ming. He won't be able to survive if the three of us work together. That's good. Masters Senior Zhu nodded. It's best if he comes quickly. The Holy Church of Light might send another disciple or even a priest. A priest won't. Before Meng Wu could finish, a long howl was heard. Tan Hu's spirits lifted, and he was overjoyed. He's here. Meng Wu smiled. He can't keep his cool. Let's go. Master Senior Zhu said. Tan Hu smiled. Master Senior Zhu, don't worry. He'll come to us. The howl was endless and soon reached their ears. Chuli had arrived at the Roaring Tiger Clan. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. He lifted the stone lion in front of the main entrance of the Roaring Tiger Clan and threw it at the wall of the Roaring Tiger Clan, creating a big hole in the wall. Boom! He lifted another stone lion and threw it, creating another big hole. The two holes connected, and with a crash, a large section of the courtyard wall collapsed. The disciples of the Roaring Tiger Clan ran out and took a step back when they saw him. None of them dared to rush forward. Chuli was holding the stone lion. He looked small in front of the huge stone lion, as if he could be crushed into meat paste at any time. However, he looked like he was lifting a brick casually. His extraordinary strength amazed them. When Chuli set fire to the Roaring Tiger Clan last time, some of the fearless disciples rushed forward, but they all died. This time, they did not dare to throw their lives away. Chuli stepped into the courtyard through the collapsed wall and came before the stone lion. He lifted it and threw it forward as if he was picking up a stone and throwing it forward. The stone lion rolled forward, breaking the trees and collapsing the rockery in its path. The stone lion rolled all the way to the front of the main hall and crashed into the steps in front of the main hall. Bang! The main hall seemed to shake. Then, Chuli tossed out another stone lion. This time, the stone lion soared into the air and flew above the main hall before it fell with a whoosh. Boom! The stone lion crushed the roof and fell into the main hall. The three people in the main hall glided out of the main hall to avoid the falling stone lion. Their faces were so gloomy that it looked like they were going to drip water. Chuli clapped his hands and puffed out his chest proudly. People of the White Tiger sect, come out and die. Tan Hu yelled. Zhao De, you came to die. Perfect timing. Chuli scoffed. You took advantage of my absence to tear down the Radiance clan. Is this all the White Tiger sect can do? What a joke, ha! His laughter reverberated throughout half of Gale City. Tan Hu scoffed. You're hiding like a rat. We demolished the Radiance clan to force you to show yourself. However, even the main hall has been demolished. How can we rebuild the Radiance clan if we can't even protect the main hall? What Joe, haha! His laughter was so loud that half of Gale City could hear it. Chuli laughed. If the White Tiger sect knows what's good for them, get lost. If you don't, I'll send you to meet your elder ancestor. Little Aluminum, Chiu sang. As soon as he finished speaking, he shot toward Tan Hu. Tan Hu punched his fists together, and a tiger silhouette suddenly appeared and shot toward Chuli. Chuli scoffed. This move is useless. His figure flashed and approached Tan Hu. Then he was hit by the tiger's silhouette from the back with a bang and accelerated toward Tan Hu. Tan Hu sneered and swung his fist. Amidst the roar of a tiger, his fist force collided with Chu Li's chest. Chu Li disappeared from the spot in a flash and avoided the fist force. At the same time, he was only 3 steps away from Tan Hu. Then he swung his arm and shot out a cold light. Ugh! Tan Hu widened his eyes in disbelief and stopped moving. He lowered his head to look at his chest. A trace of blood appeared where his heart was. Then there was a muffled pfft, and an arrow of blood spurted out from his heart. Chapter 800. Tan Hu. Meng Wu roared and punched with both fists. A tiger silhouette appeared and shot toward Chu Li. The old man, Zhu Qingyu, glided to Tan Hu's side and quickly tapped his fingers. He took out a jade bottle and poured out a white pill to stuff into Tan Hu's mouth. Then he carried Tan Hu and glided away, disappearing without a trace. Chu Li swung his blade again and did not dodge the tiger silhouette. A cold glint flashed and appeared behind Meng Wu. This blade was an 8-level light blade, while Tan Hu's was only a 6-level light blade. The tiger silhouette crashed into the rockery next to him and exploded with a bang, sending several stones flying. Meng Wu staggered and stared at Chu Li in disbelief with his eyes wide open. Chu Li picked up a flying blade and shook it. He scoffed. My light blade has reached the 7th level. You guys are just courting death. You. Meng Wu lowered his head to look at his chest and saw a trace of blood. He quickly tapped his fingers and took a deep breath. His face quickly withered and many wrinkles appeared. It was as if he had aged a few decades in a single breath. His aura became weak, and he looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. This was a secret skill that seemed similar to the life and death scripture. It could suppress one's heartbeat and slow down one's blood flow like an animal in hibernation. Chu Li appeared in front of him and waved the flying blade. Meng Wu, did you think this day would come when you wanted to kill me? Zhao Day, if you kill me, you should know the consequences. Meng Wu said slowly in a weak voice. He was extremely weak and could not fight. This was the price of using the secret skill. Chu Li curled his lips and scoffed. Consequences? You want to kill me. If I didn't have the light blade, I would have been killed by you. If you kill me, the White Tiger sect won't stop until they kill you. Meng Wu scoffed. Chu Li smiled. All right, I'd like to see how the White Tiger sect won't stop. After saying that, he punched out fiercely. Bang! The divine light fist was so powerful that Meng Wu flew backward and crashed into the stone lion. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the wound on his chest was bleeding. Chu Li threw another punch. Roar! Zhu Qingyu suddenly appeared in front of Meng Wu and threw a punch with his right hand. Bang! There was an explosion, and Chu Li took a step back. The fist force collided and turned into a tremendous force that forced him to take a step back to neutralize it. However, Zhu Qingyu did not take a step back. He punched with both fists, and a tiger silhouette appeared. It was clear and agile, as if it was a white tiger that had come to life. It instantly appeared in front of Chu Li. Chu Li did not dodge or evade. Instead, he shot out his blade. Bang! Struck by the tiger's shadow, he felt as if a giant hammer had smashed into his heart. He found it difficult to breathe, his vision darkened, and he almost fainted. Zhu Qing's shoulder was bleeding, and he dodged the flying knife at the critical moment. The White Tiger killing skill and the light blade had their own advantages and disadvantages. The White Tiger killing skill was extremely fast, and it could be moved at will to track the opponent. The light blade was even faster, but it could not change its direction to track the opponent. It seemed like the White Tiger killing skill was superior, but the power of the White Tiger killing skill was weaker. Even if one was hit, it would not be fatal if the difference in skill was not too big. The light blade would be fatal as long as it hit a vital point. However, for the White Tiger sect, which was one of the 4 major sects, even if they were shot in a vital spot, they would still be able to survive with the help of a pill and recover. Bang! Chu Li was hit by the White Tiger killing skill again. At the same time, a cold lightning shot at Zhu Qing's other shoulder. Since both of his shoulders were injured, the White Tiger killing skill could not be performed as quickly. Chu Li used his strong recovery ability and swung his left hand before the White Tiger killing skill could reach him. Zhu Qing kept changing his position to prevent Chu Li from hitting him, just like how people in the past would dodge bullets. Chu Li circulated the nature restoration manifestation in his mind. After 2 attacks, it was enough for him to predict. A cold light appeared in his left hand at Zhu Qing's chest. At the same time, his right hand flashed. To avoid the flying knife from his left hand, Zhu Qing dodged, and the flying knife from his right hand shot at the center of his chest. Zhu Qing looked down at his chest in disbelief. He had experienced the light blade before, so he knew that the way to restrain it was to keep moving and move irregularly. He had to fly randomly so that his opponent would not be able to aim at him. He could not wait for the flying knife to be shot before he could dodge it. His light body technique was excellent, and he could change his position extremely quickly. Initially, He thought that the flying knife would not hit him, but he did not expect to be hit. Chu Li swung his knife again. This time, he used flying snow and shot it at his throat. Then, he strode toward him and cut off his head with his sword. He reached out to summon the flying knife that had fallen to the ground and shook it. Instantly, it was as clean as new and there was not a single drop of blood on it. Meng Wu and Tan, who did not escape the fate of being decapitated. Their heads were separated from their bodies, and they could not be more dead. Chu Li stood in front of the roaring tiger clan and laughed. Awesome, awesome. White Tiger Sect people, come again if you're not afraid of death. I'll be waiting for you. After he said that, he strode away. The people of the roaring tiger clan watched helplessly. They kept quiet out of fear and did not dare to make a sound. A towering mountain was shrouded in clouds. Above the clouds, the mountain peak was covered in ice and snow. It was crystal clear and looked dreamy. At the peak of the mountain formed by ice and snow, there was a row of magnificent palaces that shone brilliantly under the sun. It looked like the residence of a celestial being. In the middle of the hall, it was brightly lit. The saint, Sun Mingwei, was sitting behind a desk in the middle of the hall and going through dossiers. She wore a snow-white gown and a white veil that covered her face, revealing her beautiful almond-shaped eyes. She looked elegant and graceful just by sitting there. Li Ruolin, who wore a bluish-white gown, gracefully entered the hall and curtsied. Saint, there's news from Gale City. Zhao Dai killed Tan Hu, Meng Wu, and Zhu Qingyu. Sun Mingwei looked up. Li Ruolin replied, It should be. He killed 2 of the 8 Grand Elders? Sun Mingwei asked. Li Ruolin nodded. His light blade has been cultivated to the 8th level. I'm afraid that the people of the White Tiger sect never expected to encounter such a light blade. Sun Mingwei nodded. The light blade was one of the antique studies of the Holy Church of Light. It was powerful, but the highest level it could be performed in front of outsiders was only the 6th level. She had never performed the light blade in front of anyone. The power of the 8th level of the light blade was worlds apart from the 6th level. The light blade was faster and more powerful. The White Tiger power could not block it, so it was only natural that it was defeated by Zhao Dai. My saint, Zhao Dai, is in danger now. Li Ruolin frowned. 2 elders and a youth champion had died. Tan, who might be the future sect leader of the White Tiger sect. How could the White Tiger sect not go crazy? They must kill Zhao Dai no matter what. Otherwise, the White Tiger sect would lose all its dignity. He has the light blade to protect him. It's fine, the saint said. Li Ruolin quickly said, My saint, the light blade isn't invincible. They were caught off guard earlier. Now that they're prepared, they can put on their armor or take out their shields. The light blade will be weakened. If they attack again, Zhao Dai will be in danger. No matter how powerful the light blade was, it could not bend. As long as one had a top-notch shield, even if it could not completely block the light blade, they could still kill Zhao Dai as long as they did not die. No matter how powerful Zhao Dai's light blade was, his cultivation level had not reached its peak. If the masters of the White Tiger sect attacked at the same time, they could definitely kill Zhao Dai with a White Tiger killing skill. What do you have in mind? Sun Mingwei asked. Li Ruolin said, Why don't we ask Zhao Dai to retreat? Sun Mingwei glanced at her. Have you fallen for him? Chapter 801. Sun Mingwei had a faint smile on her face. He's such a powerful man. It doesn't matter if you fall in love with him. He doesn't look good, but he's kind and has a bright future. It might be a blessing to be with him. Li Ruolin quickly said, Saint, I'm not interested. We're just ordinary friends. All right, ordinary friends. Sun Mingwei scoffed. Don't be so hesitant. Someone might snatch him away. Whoever wants to snatch him can have him. I won't take him, Li Ruolin quickly said. Sun Mingwei said, I hope you won't regret it. What about Zhao Dai? Li Ruolin asked. Sun Mingwei shook her head. Don't worry about him. Let's see what happens to him. But, Li Ruolin said anxiously, White Tiger sect will kill him sooner or later. Let's see if he can survive this, Sun Mingwei said. Li Ruolin looked at her helplessly. Sun Mingwei said, Don't disturb him. Let him think of a way himself. Yes, Li Ruolin sighed. Go. Sun Mingwei waved her hand. Li Rulin walked out of the basilica, listlessly. She stood at the entrance and turned to look at the crystal-clear ice peaks around her. Then, she lowered her head to look at the mountains and shook her head. The next few days were peaceful. Ko Qiong and the others had already found a residence. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, so they had prepared everything in advance. Chu Li hid in the residence and cultivated. He wanted to increase his cultivation level as quickly as possible in preparation for the upcoming battle. He could imagine that White Tiger sect would hunt him down and they would not stop until they killed him. Chu Li cultivated in peace. He had a taste of Ko Qiong's cunning. The Radiance clan had been destroyed, but they were not injured at all. They had even secretly stolen some valuable items. They had snatched food from the Roaring Tiger clan's mouths, but they had not been dealt with. Chu Li did not care whether they lived or died. If they died, then so be it. After all, they were people who deserved to die, so it would be better if they survived. It would also save him a lot of trouble, and he would not have to look for them anymore. As for how they did things, as long as they did not do evil, he could not be bothered. In the evening, Chu Li sat in the gazebo. Ko Qiong and the others quickly came with lunchboxes. They opened the boxes and placed a few delicious dishes on the table. Chu Li took the chopsticks from Ko Qiong and glanced at the 3 of them. Did you do something bad again? The 3 of them smiled sheepishly. Chu Li scoffed. Speak. Well, Ko Qiong looked at him and said gingerly, we went to Roaring Tiger Clan. And then? Chu Li picked up a piece of beef and chewed it slowly. Ko Qiong said cautiously, we asked them for some money to spend. How much did you ask for? Chu Li asked. 100,000 taels, Ko Qiong said. Chu Li glanced at the 3 men. Ko Qiong said embarrassedly, 130,000. You're quite thoughtful. Chu Li scoffed sarcastically. Just ask for your own. I don't have to worry about it. Hall Master is wise and mighty. How can we hide from him? The 3 of them hurriedly said. Chu Li said coldly, you should know that those who use my name will die faster. Hall Master is now famous throughout the city. No one dares to go against him. Lu Shu chuckled. Roaring Tiger Clan became obedient once we mentioned your name. They used to be the tyrant of Gale City. Chu Li said, once someone from White Tiger sect comes, you'll be in trouble. As long as Hall Master doesn't lose, we'll be safe. Lu Shu laughed. Chu Li glanced at the 3 of them and waved his hand. All right, don't do such things again. Get lost. Hall Master, you've been training too hard. Do you want to relax? Lu Shu chuckled. How about going to Gale City to see the beauties? How beautiful are they? Chu Li scoffed. Zhao De was a young man from Peacetown. He had never seen the outside world and was not tempted by prosperity. It would be strange if he did not see the beauties. Lu Shu laughed. Hall Master, you'll definitely be satisfied. We've seen them once. Ko Qiong said, Hall Master, White Tiger sect isn't the only sect in Gale City. Flaming Sun sect and Tian Luo sect also have territories, but they're not as powerful as Roaring Tiger Clan. If Hall Master can unite with Flaming Sun sect and Tian Luo sect, Radiance clan will definitely be able to stand firm. Unite with them? Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Rumor had it that the Radiance clan was annihilated back then. It was most likely because of the alliance between the 3 sections. The Holy Church of Light was now powerful and had become the common enemy of the other 3 sections. Hall Master, before you killed the 2 elders of White Tiger sect, Flaming Sun sect and Tian Luo sect definitely looked down on you. However, it's different now. If you discuss with them about dividing Gale City among the 3 sects, they'll definitely be tempted. Humans are greedy by nature. Ko Qiong said. Feng Wuji said, according to the information we've gathered, White Tiger sect is arrogant and domineering. They've been unpopular for the past few years. The disciples of Flaming Sun sect and Tian Luo sect have suffered a lot. They've been secretly fighting with White Tiger sect. I'm just afraid that once they face us, the 3 sects will join forces, Chu Li said. Not necessarily. Feng Wuji said, according to our investigation, the Phoenix Goddess Brothel is owned by the Tian Luo sect. Clan leader, you could take a look around and see what the Tian Luo sect is up to. Maybe they want to use you to destroy the roaring tiger clan. That's right. The Hall Master is now the sharpest blade in the world. Everyone wants to borrow it, Ko Cheong said. Chuli pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, let's go to the Phoenix Goddess brothel tonight. The three of them immediately beamed with joy. Chuli glanced at them and scoffed. The three of you don't have to follow me. Hall Master, have you been to a brothel? No. Chuli shook his head. If you don't know the rules, you'll be ripped off, Ko Cheong hurriedly said. Chuli scoffed. It doesn't matter. I still have the 100,000 taels that you guys stole anyway. Hall Master, our 100,000 taels of silver might be a lot in other places, but in the Immortal Phoenix restaurant, it's not considered a lot. The people who go there are all rich and respectable. Ko Cheong said, I'm afraid we can only go there a few times with 100,000 taels of silver. Chuli curled his lips and said, 10,000 taels of silver should be enough to redeem a beauty, right? The three of them shook their heads. Chuli waved his hand. Forget it. Gather? Bao yi. Xiao xia rue gadolinium? Ko Cheong beamed with joy while the other two sighed helplessly. They had secretly gone to the brothel when Chuli was not around. Once Chuli returned, the three of them would have to be at his beck and call. They would not have the time to go to the Immortal Phoenix restaurant. They had been itching to go there for a long time. When the lanterns were first lit, Gale City was brightly lit and livelier than it was during the day. Chuli was dressed in a white robe and held a white jade folding fan in his hand. Ko Cheong followed behind him. The two of them stood in front of a colorful building and listened to the sounds of stringed instruments and melodious singing. It was a scene of luxury. A servant came out and led the two of them to the second floor. The first floor was the main hall with many tables. It was considered a restaurant. One could eat and drink here and call for girls to accompany them. The second floor was a small room where one could call for girls to accompany them, listen to them sing, or watch them dance. As for the third floor, one had to be qualified to go there. Ordinary customers were not allowed to enter. Chuli sat there without saying a word while Ko Cheong took care of things. A few girls dressed in muslin entered. These girls were average-looking and dignified. They sat quietly behind the silk curtains and began to play a song. Chapter 802. Chuli glanced at her and nodded. Are you a dancer? He could see that Yuru had a voluptuous figure, and there was an inexplicable rhythm to her gait. It was obvious that she had undergone strict training and had integrated dancing into her every move. She was definitely a skilled dancer. Yes, I'm a dancer. Yuru smiled sweetly. Chuli looked at her. All right then, dance for me. Miss Yuru was beautiful, and there was a hint of slyness and quick-wittedness in her bright eyes. Yes. Yuru smiled. What dance would you like to see? Young Master Zhao. I don't know anything about dancing. You can dance whatever you're best at. I'd like to broaden my horizons. Yes. Yuru chuckled. The women sitting behind the curtains began to move. The music started and a gentle and calm voice echoed in the air. Yuru danced gracefully like a graceful spirit crane stretching its wings. She was graceful and calm, which stunned Chuli. This was the first time he realized that someone's dance could be so lively. It was truly a skillful dance. If he cultivated the 6 forms of spirit crane, he would definitely be able to advance very quickly. He stared intently at Yuru. Yuru's movements changed along with the music. Her movements were sometimes light and sometimes heavy. Chuli's heart rose and fell along with her dance. He glanced at Ko Cheong, who was behind him, and frowned. Ko Cheong's eyes lit up, and he looked intoxicated. His body moved slightly, but he was completely immersed in the dance. Chuli waved his hand in front of Ko Cheong's eyes, but Ko Cheong ignored him and continued to stare at Yuru. Chuli sighed to himself. As expected of the Tian Luo sect, this dance had the effect of confusing one's mind. It would be a piece of cake to kill Ko Cheong now. Yuru danced along with the music. Her bright eyes changed along with her every movement. Sometimes she was excited, sometimes she was desperate, sometimes she was passionate, sometimes she was cold, and sometimes she was desperate. In the beginning, the music was gentle, but it gradually changed to the sound of metal clashing. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Yuru's movements became forceful and her rhythm quickened. Her expression became fearful and desperate, as if she was in the middle of a battlefield. Chu Li narrowed his eyes and stared at her. He did not move an inch, but the omniscient mirror was watching Ko Qiong. His emotions were changing accordingly, and his inner energy was stirring, moving along with the music like the ebb and flow of the tide. However, Chu Li did not feel anything strange about himself. Chu Li possessed the omniscient mirror and Mahavairocana's immobility scripture, so the Tian Luo sect's dance and music had no effect on him. It was no different from a normal dance. Yuru was so engrossed in her dance that she did not pay any attention to Chu Li and Ko Qiong's situation. She believed that after this song, the two of them would lose their ability to fight back. As the music grew louder and louder, she danced more and more intensely. Her movements were strong and forceful, just like a man. It was like a man on the battlefield facing the charge of thousands of soldiers and horses. Trapped in a desperate situation, knowing that he was no match for the enemy, he still fought until the last moment. The music stopped abruptly. Yuru suddenly stopped moving as well. She was panting and sweating profusely. She bowed to Chu Li and retreated gracefully. When she saw that Chu Li was clear-headed and completely fine, she was shocked, but her expression remained calm. She retreated without hesitation. The rest of the girls who were playing the zither also left gracefully, and the room immediately became quiet. Chu Li turned around and patted Ko Qiong. Ko Qiong spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Chu Li curled his lips and looked at him. How useless! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Ko Qiong regained his senses and said guiltily, "Clan leader, I've miscalculated." Chu Li asked, "Is this the martial art of the Tian Luo sect?" Ko Qiong nodded. "It's the musical assassination technique that can hurt without leaving a trace." Chu Li scoffed. "You know that this is the Tian Luo sect's territory, so why didn't you guard against it?" "I couldn't help it." Ko Qiong shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I've been guarding against it, but I didn't expect to be so fascinated by it." Chu Li said, "Looks like you'll have to fall for it next time." Ko Qiong nodded helplessly. "This is the scary thing about the Tian Luo sect. You know that it's a killing technique, but you can't guard against it." "This Miss Yuru is very interesting," Chu Li said. "Is she famous in the Phoenix Goddess Brothel?" "Yes," Ko Qiong replied. "Miss Yuru is very famous in Gale City." Chu Li scoffed. "Looks like they came prepared. They're testing us." Ko Qiong chuckled. "That's a good thing. It shows that they value the clan leader." That's true. I like to see what the Tian Luo sect is up to." Chu Li waved his folding fan. Yuru entered the room gracefully. She had changed into a light green gown, and her hair was wet. Her body carried a faint fragrance after a bath. She bowed to Chu Li. "I'm sorry for neglecting you, young Master Zhao." Chu Li asked, "Miss Yuru, what song was that just now?" "The formation-breaking song." Yuru pursed her lips and smiled. "I didn't expect young Master Zhao to have such a strong willpower." "You're not affected at all." Chu Li pouted. "I don't know anything about music." Yuru said, "The more one doesn't know about music, the more they'll react to this song." "Young Master, your follower doesn't know anything about music either, right?" Ko Qiong coughed softly and nodded. "Yes, he doesn't." Chu Li scoffed. "Do you have any more powerful songs?" "The one just now was quite nice." "Oh," Yuru was surprised. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Young Master Zhao, aren't you afraid of getting hurt?" Chu Li snorted. "I haven't heard a song that can hurt me yet." "Young Master Zhao, since you're so bold, Yuru can only play along." Yuru chuckled and clapped her hands. A young lady came in with an exquisite pipa and handed it to Yuru. Yuru sat on the opposite stool and covered half of her beautiful face, revealing only her bright eyes. She smiled and said, "Yuru will play a song for you, young Master Zhao." "All right." Chu Li nodded casually. Clang, 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 clang. The rapid sound of the pipa sounded like the clatter of a horse's hooves. Suddenly, a murderous aura surged toward them. Ko Qiong's spirit was lifted and his eyes glowed. Chu Li nodded. An expert could tell the moment they played. Yuru's plucking of the pipa was enough to shake one's soul. Then, the sound of the pipa was like a rainstorm hitting a banana leaf. It was rapid and dense, continuous and continuous, making it hard for one to breathe. However, every sound reached the bottom of one's heart and made one's heart beat faster. Chu Li's expression remained the same. Ko Chiong's face turned red and his eyes glowed brightly. He could not suppress his murderous aura and was ready to kill at any moment. As the sound of the pipa continued, Ko Chiong's face became redder and redder. Ko Chiong spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face quickly turned pale. Chu Li shook his head. Yuru gently closed her eyes and plucked the strings with her slender fingers. Her movements were light and agile, as if she was dancing on the strings. Ko Chiong spat out another mouthful of blood, and his expression became even more ghastly. He had regained his senses, but he still could not stop the damage caused by the sound of the pipa. His internal organs were trembling, and his blood flow and heartbeat were being controlled by the sound of the pipa. Clap! Clap! Chu Li folded his fan and slapped his palms twice. Chapter 803. P.S. 6 minutes complete. Chu Li's 2 gentle pats were like 2 streams of inner energy entering his body. His organs immediately calmed down, his blood flow and heartbeat returned to normal, and all the strange sensations and pain disappeared. Ko Chiong was even more in awe of Chu Li. This clan leader was truly powerful. Yuru pressed her hands on the strings, and the music stopped. She glared at Chu Li angrily. "Young Master Zhao, you're so powerful. How dare you say that you don't understand music?" Chu Li replied, "I really don't understand. I was just randomly patting. The musical assassination technique of Tian Luo's sect is really powerful. It kills people without leaving a trace. If it were used on the battlefield, wouldn't it be more effective?" Yuru shook her head. "A battle formation can break the musical assassination technique." Chu Li asked, "Miss Yuru, what's your status in Tian Luo's sect?" "I'm an official disciple of Tian Luo's sect," Yuru answered. Chu Li was surprised. "An official disciple? Why don't you cultivate in the mountains then? Isn't it too unfair for you to stay here? Only by living in the secular world can you see through people's hearts and truly master the essence of Tian Luo's sect's martial arts." Yuru shook her head. "Tian Luo's sect's martial arts can't be cultivated in the mountains." No wonder. Chu Li suddenly understood and curled his lips. "If that's the case, it's far worse than the Holy Church of Light. Our official disciples have a very high status and are much stronger than you guys." "That's not entirely true." Yuru smiled sweetly. "Although we live in the secular world, we compete with ourselves, unlike the disciples of the Holy Church of Light who have to compete with other disciples to the death. It's very tragic." "It's not tragic," Chu Li replied. Yuru said, "There's a competition every 5 years. Only the top 5 outer mountain disciples can become inner mountain disciples. The competition is very fierce." "That's fair," Chu Li smiled. "It's a competition of martial arts rankings. Whoever is more capable will become an inner mountain disciple. No one can say anything. It's a fight to the death." Yuru shook her head. "It's a competition between fellow disciples. There's no such thing as friendship." "All right, the Tian Luo sect is indeed not bad." Chu Li smiled. "You're not thinking of letting me join the Tian Luo sect, are you?" "Our Tian Luo sect does not accept male disciples." Yuru smiled sweetly and said, "Young Master Zhao, you've caused a huge disaster, but you're still able to sit here calmly and not worry at all. Yuru admires you." "You mean kill those 3 guys?" Chu Li pursed his lips. "If I don't kill them, they'll kill me. It's either you die or I die. I can only kill them. It's not a big deal if the White Tiger sect wants to avenge them." "Young Master Zhao, do you think that you can defeat the White Tiger sect?" "Of course." Yuru giggled. "Young Master Zhao is so funny." Chu Li said seriously, "I'm not joking. I can defeat them." Yuru asked, "Can Master Zhao defeat the White Tiger sect on his own?" "The White Tiger sect had been destroyed a long time ago. Do you really think that you can kill all the other elders just because you've killed 2 of them? Moreover, he learned from the sect leader of the White Tiger sect. Chu Li replied, "Of course." Yuru shook her head and said, "I know that young Master Zhao's light blade is powerful, but there's no such thing as an invincible martial art. There are many ways to restrain the light blade. As far as I know, the White Tiger sect specializes in researching ways to restrain the martial arts of the Holy Church of Light. They've refined a few sets of White Tiger armor. As long as they were the White Tiger armor, the power of the light blade will be reduced by half." Chu Li scoffed and asked, "Do they wear armor from head to toe and even cover their faces?" "Of course." Yuru nodded and said, "Only their eyes are exposed." Chu Li frowned. Yuru said, "Moreover, among the 8 Grand Elders, each of them has a higher cultivation level than the next. I heard that 2 of the 8 Grand Elders are more than 300 years old. They're unfathomable." Chu Li frowned and asked, "What's the purpose of telling you all this?" "We can help you," Yuru said. "How?" "We can help you escape the White Tiger sect's pursuit. If I want to hide, I could just leave Gale City. The world is so big, where would they find me?" "Young Master Zhao, you've underestimated the White Tiger sect. They have the White Tiger soul-tracking technique. Unless you return to the Great Light Peak, they won't be able to do anything to you. As long as you don't enter the Great Light Peak, they'll be able to track you down no matter where you go. Can you escape the White Tiger soul-tracking technique?" "Of course." "What's the condition?" "Young Master Zhao, you just have to promise not to attack the disciples of the Tian Luo sect." "That's impossible." Chu Li shook his head. "If the disciples of the Tian Luo sect fight against me, I can only be beaten up. In that case, we'll change it to not hurting the disciples of the Tian Luo sect. Then, can the disciples of the Tian Luo sect attack me without restraint?" "I can't hurt you anyway." Chu Li shook his head and said, "This condition is too unreliable. Let's talk about something more reliable. If it's reliable, it'll be to help us do something." "What is it?" "Kill an elder of the White Tiger sect." "Who?" "Tan Jin. His surname is Tan as well." "What's his relationship with Tan Hu?" "It doesn't matter." Yuru shook her head gently and said, "He killed one of our sisters, but he's an elder and has always stayed in the White Tiger sect. We can't kill him, but I'm guessing that he'll come over this time. If I kill him, you'll help me escape." "As long as young Master Zhao agrees, there's no need to kill him this time. Aren't you afraid that I won't do it after agreeing? We believe in young Master Zhao." "All right, I agree," Chu Li said. Yuru instantly smiled. "Thank you, Master Zhao." Chu Li said, "As long as you don't sell me out, young Master Zhao need not worry about this." Yuru said, "We won't get anything out of selling young Master Zhao to the White Tiger sect. The White Tiger sect has been getting more and more overbearing in recent years, and they don't respect us at all." Chu Li smiled. "All right, I'll trust you this time." He stood up and said, "I've said what I needed to say. Let's go." "Why doesn't young Master Zhao stay for the night?" Yuru smiled sweetly and said, "Although I'm only a performer and not a performer, I can still talk about the martial arts world with you, young Master Zhao. Or I can ask my other sisters to come over and sing a song for us." Chu Li shook his head and said, "I need to cultivate quickly." Then he patted Ko Qiong. "Let's go." Ko Qiong quickly stood up and opened the door for him. Yuru quickly said, "Young Master Zhao, you should stay here now. Don't go back." Chu Li turned to look at her. Yuru said, "Young Master Zhao, it's no longer safe there. We don't know when they'll come. They might even be able to sneak in without us noticing. Why don't you stay here from today onwards?" Ko Qiong quickly said, "Clan leader, Miss Yuru is right." Chu Li frowned and thought about it. "Can we find a quiet place?" "Of course." Yuru smiled sweetly. "I'm just afraid that young Master Zhao won't be able to stand the silence." "I'll be fine as long as I can cultivate in peace," Chu Li said. "Young Master Zhao, please follow me." Yuru stood up and walked out. The two of them followed behind her. Yuru suddenly stopped when she was about to leave and looked at Ko Qiong with a smile. Ko Qiong tactfully said, "Clan leader, I won't be going then." Chu Li turned to look at him. Ko Qiong chuckled. "Don't worry, clan leader. We'll leave Gale City immediately." Chu Li said, We'll be back in a month. Yes. Ko Chiong nodded. Chapter 804. Chuli followed Uru up to the third floor and entered a room. His surroundings suddenly became quiet as if all sounds had disappeared, and he was completely isolated from the world. He could hear his own breathing clearly. Chuli looked at Uru in shock. Uru smiled sweetly. This is a Sumeru formation. It's a world of its own that is completely isolated from the outside world. As long as you stay here, the White Tiger sect's White Tiger soul-tracking technique will not be able to find you. Chuli asked, is the Tian Luo sect proficient in formations? Of course. Uru smiled. The formation path is also one of the cultivation methods of the Tian Luo sect. Unfortunately, the aptitude required to study formations is too high and almost no disciples are able to learn it. However, the legacy of our ancestors still exists. Chuli asked, how many formation masters are there in the Tian Luo sect? 2. Uru replied. Are you interested in formations too, young Master Zhao? Chuli nodded. It's very magical. I want to learn it too. Sure. Uru smiled. Formations are different from other martial arts. It's not forbidden to teach it to outsiders. If you can learn it, it'll be your own fortune. Chuli raised his eyebrows. Isn't formation the ultimate study of your sect? Uru shook her head. Our sect has the sect guarding formation, but the formation path isn't one of them. If you want to learn the formation path, I can get you some books. However, the formation path is too profound and unpredictable. It's enough to make one's head explode, so I won't be able to study it. Thank you very much, Chuli said. Uru shook her head. Young Master Zhao, you'll feel very bored here. Time passes very slowly. It's not a bad idea to study formations to kill time. Chuli nodded. Uru said, the White Tiger sect will probably give up after a month. Young Master Zhao, you can stay here for a month. I won't implicate you, will I? Chuli asked. Uru chuckled. We're allies with the White Tiger sect. We'll fight the Holy Church of Light together. Chuli asked, is hiding me a personal grudge? Yes. Uru nodded. Tanjin has a blood feud with me. I have to avenge him. Chuli said slowly, I'll kill him. Uru smiled sweetly. Young Master Zhao, I'm afraid that you're no match for him with your current martial arts skills. If you want to kill him, you'll have to wait until the future. He's that powerful. He's one of the top elders in the White Tiger sect. He's much more powerful than Zhu Qingyu. Uru pointed at a thin rope in the corner of the wall. Pull this rope if you need anything. I'm the only one who can enter this place. No one else can. Chuli nodded. Uru curtsied and retreated gracefully. Chuli looked at the Sumeru formation. This formation was indeed mysterious. When he first entered, the omniscient mirror could not detect its existence. Now that he was in the middle of the formation, he could still use the omniscient mirror to observe his surroundings without any obstruction. It was like a one-way shield. He watched as Uru gracefully left the room and arrived at another room on the third floor. She entered the room and curtsied. Master! Sitting cross-legged on the bed in the room was a beautiful young woman with a graceful figure. She was like a ripe peach, and there wasn't a single part of her body that didn't emit an alluring aura. She opened her eyes and glanced lazily at Uru. Has he hidden himself? Yes. Uru nodded obediently. Master, why do you want to help him? What do you think? The beautiful young woman asked lazily. Uru shook her head. I don't understand. After all, he's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. He'll be our opponent in the future. The four major sects have been fighting each other for so many years. The beautiful young woman said, there's no need to worry about the sects being wiped out. It's all a battle of interests. The Holy Church of Light is powerful because they're relying on the Li dynasty's imperial court. The three major sects are small, so they can only work together to fight against the Holy Church of Light for their own interests. However, the three major sects won't be united when it comes to interests. Yes, Uru nodded. The three major sects had their own interests. Moreover, they had different ways of doing things and philosophies, so there were conflicts between them. The beautiful young woman said, so don't be so stubborn. Forming an alliance means that you'll really hate the Holy Church of Light. If there's a chance to befriend them, why not? Master, are you saying that he's an important figure in the Holy Church of Light? Yu frowned. He doesn't look like one. He's more like an abandoned pawn. She felt that Zhao De was foolish and did not have a good appearance. He did not give people a good impression and did not seem like an important figure. Without the spirit of an important figure, she felt that it would be difficult for him to achieve great things. The beautiful young woman said, "That's because you don't understand how the Holy Church of Light trains their disciples. The Holy Church of Light is extremely strict with their disciples. Compared to them, the disciples of the Tian Luo sect are like flowers in a greenhouse. No matter how I look at it, he'll definitely die," Yu said. The beautiful young woman said, "The Holy Church of Light trains their disciples by putting them in a desperate situation to stimulate their potential and find the strongest disciple. This is how they train their disciples. As for whether they die or not, it all depends on their luck. The Holy Church of Light won't save them." How cruel! Yu curled her red lips disapprovingly. How many disciples will die? How can they be loyal? Instead of dying in the future, it's better to die early. The Holy Church of Light is ruthless. The beautiful young woman scoffed. However, this method gives us a chance to befriend the disciple of the Holy Church of Light. He'll provide timely help when he's in trouble. In the future, when he becomes an important figure in the Holy Church of Light, the Holy Church of Light's attitude toward the Tian Luo sect will be affected. Master, do you really think that Zhao De will become an important figure in the Holy Church of Light? My premonition is very accurate. He'll be a powerful figure. Treat him well, the beautiful young woman said. Befriend him and you'll benefit greatly in the future. Yes, thank you, Master. Yu nodded. He wants to study formations. The beautiful young woman scoffed and said, "Give him an introductory book on formations. Let's see how capable he is." She waved her hand as she spoke. Yes, Yu agreed and curtsied before she left. As soon as she closed the door, the room disappeared from Chu Li's omniscient mirror. He could not see it anymore. It was obvious that this beautiful young woman's room was also protected by a formation. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and retracted the omniscient mirror. Just as he had expected, Miss Yu had not fallen in love with him at first sight or simply wanted to avenge herself. Instead, she had been ordered by her master to save him. Yuru's master was planning to burn the midnight oil stove and bet on him. She had a good eye. Soon, Yuru returned with a few yellow silk books and placed them on the study table. She smiled sweetly and said, "These are the introductory books on formations. Why don't you take a look at them first, young Master Zhao? If you're able to understand them, you can read more about formations." "All right. Thank you, Miss Yuru." Chuli gave a fist salute. Yuru smiled sweetly and said, "If young Master Zhao can master formations, you'll have a higher chance of defeating Tanjin." "Yes." Chuli nodded. Chapter 805. Yuru curtsied and excused herself. Chuli picked up the silk books and flipped through them thoughtfully. These books were introductory formations. They were much simpler and more obvious than the ones he had read before. If he had read these books back then, it would not have been so difficult to learn the basics, and he would have been able to understand them at once. The Mahavairocana's immobility scripture had indeed increased his intelligence. Now, he could read these books with ease and could see through them at a glance. He was tempted to delve deeper. To avoid shocking the world, he could only suppress this desire and cultivate the Great Light Scripture first. As he progressed in the Great Light Scripture, his divine light body became stronger. The divine light body was indeed mysterious and could not be compared to ordinary body tempering techniques. The stronger the divine light body, the faster his speed, his strength, his reflexes, and his resistance to damage would be. The next morning, Yuru opened the door and entered with a lunchbox. When she opened it, there were a few exquisite dishes inside. Chuli got off the bed and sat down at the table. "Miss Yuru, you just have to send me food every 3 days. Is young Master Zhao cultivating some secret skill? How can you not be hungry? Once I start cultivating, I usually meditate for 3 days, Chuli replied. 3 days. Yuru's eyes flashed, and she smiled. All right, I'll send you food every 3 days so that I won't disturb your cultivation, young Master Zhao. She was secretly surprised that Zhao De was a genius. She had never heard of anyone who could cultivate for 3 days in one go. He usually cultivated 2 or 3 times a day and did not cultivate for too long. Chuli smiled and said, "These introductory formations books are good. I've finished reading them." Yuru quickly gathered her thoughts and smiled. Can you understand them? Yes, I can. Chuli nodded. They're quite fun. Are there any more difficult ones? You understand them? Yuru stared at him. Chuli nodded. Yes, they're not difficult, right? All right, these books are introductory. They're not difficult at all. Yuru took a deep breath and smiled sweetly. I'll bring a few more books later. They'll be more difficult. She secretly decided that she would bring a few difficult books over to properly deal a blow to his arrogance. This was simply too infuriating. Chuli said, "Thank you very much. I'll go get it now." Yuru placed the dishes on the table and left gracefully. After a while, she returned and took out 3 thick silk books from her sleeve. She handed them to Chuli. This should be enough for you, Master Zhao. Chuli was overjoyed at the sight of his prey and could not help but smile as he said excitedly, "Thank you, Miss Yuru." When Yuru saw that he could not wait to flip through the dishes, she forced herself not to look at them. Instead, she lowered her head and wolfed down the food like a hungry wolf. In a short while, she had finished all the dishes on the table. Yuru tactfully kept quiet. She cleaned up the bowls and chopsticks, picked up the lunchbox, and left. Chuli hurriedly opened the silk booklet and began to flip through it. From the low-level 3-sun formation to the high-level small Meru formation, all of them were exquisite beyond compare. However, there was no Sumeru formation like Yuru had mentioned. Chuli was already very satisfied. He had never thought that he would be able to obtain these formation books. Formation books were very rare in the Ji dynasty. He flipped through them page by page and imprinted all the formations in these 3 silk books into his mind. He wanted to slowly study them after he was done. It would take him a while to study them. The wonders of formations were like the wonders of mathematics. They were very addictive, and he loved studying them. However, he used his rationality to pull himself back from studying them. He needed to focus on his cultivation. His top priority was still to cultivate. A week later, at night, the Phoenix Goddess Brothel was unusually lively when the lanterns were lit. The sound of stringed instruments and singing lingered in the air. A handsome middle-aged man stepped into the Phoenix Goddess Brothel. He had a square face and big ears. His gaze was sharp, and he had a dignified aura. It was obvious that he was someone who had been in a high position for a long time. He immediately asked to see Miss Yuru. The servant had a good eye and did not dare to neglect him. He brought him to a room on the 2nd floor. Miss Yuru gracefully entered the room. When she saw the man, her expression changed slightly. Then she smiled sweetly. "Greetings, sir. Is this your first time at the Phoenix Goddess Brothel?" The middle-aged man waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "My surname is Tan. My name is Tanjin. I'm an elder of the White Tiger sect." "Oh, it's Elder Tan. My apologies." Yuru curtsied. Tanjin asked, "You must be a disciple of the Tian Luo sect, right?" Yuru nodded and said, "To tell you the truth, I'm indeed a disciple of the Tian Luo sect. What can I do for you, Elder Tan?" "Who's your master?" "My master is by phone." Tanjin frowned. He was afraid of this name. He said slowly, "I haven't seen Elder Bai for a few years. How has she been?" "My master is healthy and healthy, just like before," Yuru replied. Tanjin said, "Since you're one of us, I won't beat around the bush. Zhao Ade has been to the Phoenix Goddess Brothel, right?" "Yes." Yuru nodded. "I personally received him. He disappeared ever since he entered the Phoenix Goddess Brothel." Tanjin stared at her. His eyes were bright, as if he could see through her. Yuru was shocked. "Disappeared? Elder Tan, do you think that we've killed him?" Tanjin said, "If your sect kills Zhao De, the White Tiger sect will reward you handsomely. We want to kill him too, but unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do so. Yuru shook her head and sighed. He's indeed a powerful person. We used the musical assassination technique, but he's surprisingly strong. He wasn't hurt by the musical assassination technique. Oomph. Tanjin sneered. He's indeed difficult to deal with. Yuru said, he didn't turn on us. He just left, and I don't know where he went. Did he escape? Tanjin shook his head. He's in Gale City. If I were him, I would have escaped and returned to the Great Light Peak. Yuru frowned. Why are you still staying here? He won't escape if he wants to revive the Radiance clan, Tanjin said. He's probably hiding somewhere. Yuru shook her head. The White Tiger sect has many spies. As long as he hasn't left the city, we'll definitely be able to find him. I didn't expect him to be such a powerful person. I thought he was just a madman. We'll find him sooner or later, Tanjin said. However, I'm afraid that someone might be hiding him on purpose. As he spoke, he stared daggers at Yuru. Yuru said, who in Gale City would be so bold as to hide someone that the White Tiger sect wants to kill? If I find out who's protecting him, I won't show any mercy. I'll destroy their entire clan, Tanjin said coldly. His gaze swept across Yuru's face. Yuru pretended to be unaware and chuckled. I'd also like to know who would be so bold. Oomph. There's always someone who's not afraid of death. Tanjin sneered. Yuru nodded. If that's the case, very well. Tanjin stood up and straightened his robes. Let me know if there's any news. All right. Yuru nodded. Chapter 806. Crash. She swept her hand across the table, causing everything on the table to fall onto the carpet. She picked up the vase and smashed it against the wall. Crash! The vase shattered into pieces. She picked up another vase and smashed it against the wall. Crash! The vase shattered into pieces again. Her slender, jade-like hand fiercely slammed the table, and with a crash sound, the table turned into a pile of fragments. She then slammed another table, which shattered into pieces as well. In just a short while, the entire house had been turned into a pile of ruins. Apart from the house, nothing else was left. Not a single piece of furniture was left intact. Her beautiful face was flushed, and her chest was heaving up and down as she panted. She had bitten her red lips until they bled. After a while, she calmed down and tried to take a few deep breaths to calm her anger. Then, she arrived at Chu Li's house. Chu Li glanced at her and said calmly, "You don't look well. Did someone from the White Tiger sect come?" "Yes." Yuru nodded. "It's Tanjin. He's alone." Chu Li asked. Yuru nodded. Chu Li smiled. "What's wrong with the White Tiger sect? They're so arrogant. Last time, it was 2 elders and 1 disciple. Why is there only 1 elder this time?" "Because this elder can defeat the other 2 elders." Yuru scoffed. "Tanjin's martial arts is very powerful." Chu Li said, "It seems like he can restrain my light blade." "He must be wearing white tiger armor," Yuru said. "You have to be careful." Chu Li smiled. "I'd like to see his white tiger armor." "Don't go out yet." Yuru shook her head. "His martial arts is very powerful. You're no match for him now. You'll have to wait until the future to kill him." "I'll forgive him for 2 days then." Chu Li scoffed. "I'll destroy him." Another week had passed. Tanjin had been searching for Chu Li in Gale City. He had mobilized all his spies and searched every inch of Gale City. He had the White Tiger soul tracking skill, but he could not sense Zhao De. There were only 2 possibilities. One was that Zhao De was hiding in the Great Light Peak, and the other was that he was hiding in a formation. After thinking about it, only the Tian Luo sect had the ability to set up a formation in Gale City. However, why would the Tian Luo sect help Zhao De? Tanjin could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. The Tian Luo sect should be on the same side as him. Although he had killed a disciple of the Tian Luo sect many years ago, no one knew about it. Therefore, the Tian Luo sect could not possibly fall out with the White Tiger sect and help Zhao De. That evening, the sun was setting. He was drinking alone in a courtyard of the Roaring Tiger Hall. Suddenly, he sensed Zhao De's presence. He put down a wine glass and stood up. In a flash, he disappeared from the courtyard. In the time it took to take a few breaths, he was already in front of a forest outside the city. He looked at Chu Li, who was standing on top of a tree. This forest was lush and luxuriant, an ancient forest that had been formed for several hundred years. Every single tree was thick and tall, reaching straight into the clouds. Chu Li stepped on the treetops high above. A gust of wind blew, causing the treetops to undulate. He swayed up and down along with it, as if he had become one with the soft branches. Under the setting sun, his white robes fluttered in the wind, giving him a natural and unrestrained air. It was a pity that his ugly face ruined some of it. "You're Zhao Dai." Tanjin looked up and asked in a deep voice. Chu Li replied, "You're Tanjin? Good lad, you know my name." Tanjin scoffed. "You killed Tan Hu, Meng Wu, and Zhu Qinyu?" "That's me," Chu Li replied. "They wanted to kill me, so I had no choice but to kill them if I wanted to live." "Are you here to kill me as well?" Tanjin replied, "That's right." As soon as he finished speaking, he joined his hands together and then separated them. Two tiger silhouettes instantly appeared in front of Chu Li. They were incredibly fast and were not inferior to his light blade. Chu Li had already activated the light blade, just as Tanjin was tempted. As soon as the two tiger silhouettes appeared, his hands flashed and the light blade shot out. Before the tiger silhouettes could reach Chu Li's chest, the light blade had already hit Tanjin. Tanjin was hit by the light blade, but he only took a step back. At the same time, he directed the tiger silhouettes to attack Chu Li. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and reappeared 100 feet away. As soon as he reappeared, the tiger silhouettes had already landed on him. Bang! Chu Li was sent flying and crashed into a huge tree. The towering tree, which was so thick that it would take two people to wrap their arms around it, shook violently. Chu Li was unable to break free from the tree and was stuck in the trunk. He felt as if his internal organs were being overturned. The divine light body could not block this tiger silhouette. Tanjin's cultivation level was truly shocking. Tanjin lowered his head to look at his robe and smiled. Chu Li frowned and glared at him. Tanjin said, "Zhao Dai, this robe of mine is a rare treasure that has been passed down since ancient times. It's said that it's woven from the silk of floating silkworms. It's invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire." Chu Li scoffed. "What a white tiger sect. This is the foundation of the 4 major sects," Tanjin said. "If you're powerful in martial arts, you'll have a lot of good stuff. Your light blade is powerful, but it can't break through this treasured robe woven from the silk of floating silkworms." Chu Li said, "Your head isn't wearing a treasured robe. That depends on what you're capable of, haha." Tanjin laughed loudly and clasped his hands together. Instantly, 2 tiger silhouettes appeared in front of Chu Li without giving him any time to react. Chu Li slid down and barely dodged the tiger silhouettes. Bang! Bang! The tiger silhouettes hit the giant tree and let out a muffled sound before they exploded into dust. The power of the tiger silhouettes was shocking and far beyond what Zhu Qinyu and the other 2 could achieve. Chu Li moved behind the tree in a flash. With the giant tree in his way, Tanjin could not see Chu Li and could not order the tiger silhouettes to chase after him. Tanjin scoffed and took a step forward to hide behind the giant tree. He noticed that there was no one behind the tree. Chu Li had disappeared. He shook his head. Since Chu Li had appeared, it would be impossible for him to escape. He activated the White Tiger soul tracking skill and noticed that Chu Li was behind him. He clasped his hands together and separated them before another 2 tiger silhouettes appeared and shot toward the giant tree behind him. Chu Li shrunk his body and the 2 tiger silhouettes hit the tree again, causing it to explode into dust. Chu Li then used the giant tree as a cover and kept changing his position. In a short while, 12 tiger silhouettes exploded. This was the battlefield that Chu Li had carefully chosen. It could minimize the power of the white tiger killing skill, and it seemed like it was working. Tanjin noticed Chu Li's evil intentions and stopped using the white tiger killing skill recklessly. Instead, he flew into the air and looked down from above so that Chu Li would have nowhere to hide. Then he could use the white tiger killing skill with half the effort. Swoosh! As soon as he leaped up, a cold glint shot toward his throat. His hair stood on end as he desperately tried to turn his body sideways. Swoosh! The cold glint brushed past his chest and landed on the ground. If he was not wearing the treasured clothing, this slash would have cut his stomach open. Swoosh! Another cold glint pierced through his head. Tanjin reacted quickly and lowered his body. Bang! He was hit by a powerful force from his neck and fell to the ground again. He was secretly shocked. Zhao Dai's light blade was stronger than the information he had received. It was incredibly fast and impossible to defend against. If he was not wearing the treasure clothing, he would have died. Chuli laughed loudly and said, "The White Tiger sect is just SOSO." He glided away as soon as he finished speaking. Tanjin sneered and took a few steps forward to catch up to Chuli. The two of them headed up the mountain. Tanjin sneered as he released tiger silhouettes. He could see Chuli. The tiger silhouettes instantly hit Chuli's back and sent him flying into the air. Chuli's forward speed increased instead. Chapter 807. Tanjin curled his lips and shook his head. He did not think much of Chuli's petty tricks. If his cultivation level was not high enough, he would only be successful for a while. In the end, he would not be able to escape. He suddenly sped up and shrank back to 10 meters. Tanjin was just about to unleash the white tiger killing skill when he suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. He hastily ducked his head. Cheat! A patch of hair on the top of his head was cut off, and he was in a sorry state. The speed of the light blade was unbelievably fast. It was a matter of life and death if he were to exchange blows with it. Due to his scruples, he did not dare to get too close to avoid the attack. He was wearing a treasured robe, but his head was not protected. If he was hit by the blade, he would lose his life. However, the long distance also gave Zhao Dai the opportunity to dodge the white tiger killing skill. Fortunately, the white tiger killing skill could turn and chase after him continuously. As the two of them chased after each other, they soon reached the top of the mountain. Chuli's body movement technique was extraordinarily fast, and he did not seem to be injured at all. It was as if the person who had spat out blood earlier was not him. The divine light body was exceptionally tough. Tanjin harumphed. Zhao Dai, even if you run to the ends of the world, you won't be able to escape from me. Chuli sneered. You really dare to boast. I don't need to run to the end of the earth. All I need to do is run back to the Great Light Peak. Will you be able to chase after me? You wouldn't dare, even if I gave you 10 guts. As he spoke, he sped along. His voice was steady, and he didn't seem injured at all. Tanjin frowned as he stared at Chuli's back. Zhao Dai's cultivation level was beyond his imagination. He did not seem like a young man, but more like a cunning old man. Tanjin had to kill him today. Tanjin said, "If you could escape to the Great Light Peak, you would have done so a long time ago. Why would you wait until now?" That's right. I won't return to the Great Light Peak. I won't leave Gale City until I rebuild the Radiance clan. Chuli scoffed. Tanjin sneered. You have ambition. Then die. He clasped his hands together and was about to pull them apart to form two tiger shadows. Chi! A bolt of cold lightning appeared in front of him. Tanjin couldn't care less about the white tiger killing technique anymore. He lowered his head abruptly, and a few more locks of hair fell off his head. He felt a faint nausea in his chest, and he felt vexed and uncomfortable. The white tiger killing technique had been interrupted when he was caught off guard, so it was a taboo. In his frustration, his murderous intent grew, and he became a little impulsive. He took a deep breath and suddenly sped up, closing the distance between him and Chuli to 5 meters. He clasped his hands together again. Chi! A bolt of cold lightning struck his throat. He didn't even have time to react before his throat was stabbed. In an instant, a violent surge of chi drilled into his throat and traveled up to his brain. Tanjin let out an angry roar, and the silhouette of a tiger appeared in the sky like a real white tiger. Then, it pounced down from the sky like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. The tiger's shadow pounced into his body, and the wound on his throat instantly stopped bleeding. Chu frowned. He did not expect such a strange technique to exist. Tianjin's aura was monstrous. He was like a ferocious tiger that pounced at him. Chu shot out another flying blade. Tianjin's reaction was incredibly fast. He swatted away the flying dagger with a palm and continued to pounce. Chu saw that the situation was not good, so he turned around and left. Tianjin took 2 strides to Chu Li's back and struck him with his palm. Bam! Chu Li was like a rubber ball that was thrown out. He was instantly hit far away and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Tianjin took another step forward and arrived in front of him. He struck out with his palm again. His movements seemed calm, but they were incredibly fast. Chu Li could predict it through the manifestation of nature restoration, but he could not dodge it. Tianjin's movements were too fast and exceeded his reaction time. He could only watch helplessly as he was beaten. Bam! Chu Li was struck again. He flew far away and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He felt like a prey that was being toyed with by a ferocious tiger. He could not control his own fate. This feeling almost made him want to use his divine power. Tianjin shot at him again. His eyes were bright. The knife earlier did not seem to have affected him at all. The wound on his throat was not bleeding, and the inner energy that had drilled into his body had been expelled. It did not hinder his movements at all. He was as fast as lightning, and his reflexes were incredibly fast. He was actually able to swat away or dodge Chu Li's flying daggers. When he got closer, Chu Li's left hand flashed coldly. The flying dagger instantly shot towards Tianjin's throat. Tianjin easily raised his arm and used his sleeve to block his throat. Chu Li's right hand flashed coldly at almost the same time. Tianjin had just loosened his arm and pulled down his sleeve when the flying dagger arrived. It narrowly passed through the protective sleeve and pierced his throat again. A violent inner energy immediately drilled into his mind. His movements paused for a moment. In that split second, Chu Li's right hand flashed coldly and appeared in front of Tianjin's eye. Ah! Tianjin roared angrily as his body swayed. The flying dagger pierced through his eye socket and came out from the back of his head, drawing a stream of blood. Tianjin was in unbearable pain. The violent inner energy drilled into his head, and the pain was 10 times worse than the rest of his body. He could not help but stop moving again. Chu Li's left hand flashed coldly and shot Tianjin's other eye. His right hand flashed coldly and shot Tianjin's mouth again, piercing through his throat and the back of his head. Tianjin roared as he collapsed. Chu Li spat out a mouthful of black blood and collapsed as well. Tianjin fell to the ground and twitched slightly. Hee. How interesting. Suddenly, a laugh rang out. A figure suddenly appeared in the distance. He glided over on the treetops and arrived before them in the blink of an eye. It was an old man with white eyebrows and a maroon complexion. He was grinning at Chu Li and Tianjin. Chu Li frowned as he looked at him. Then, he closed his eyes and channeled to heal himself. He had long seen this sneaky fellow, but he had no time to pay attention to him. Tianjin's cultivation level was extremely profound, and Chu Li was slightly weaker than him. If it were not for the light blade, he would have been defeated by Tianjin today. The light blade alone was definitely not enough to defeat Tianjin, and he also had the help of the manifestation of nature restoration and the omniscient mirror. He had grasped the precise timing of his flying daggers and was often able to catch a big opponent with a small one. Just like the old man in front of him, the timing of his appearance was too accurate. The red-faced elder didn't want him to continue healing, so he shook his head and said, "You're so young, yet you already have such a high cultivation level. You really make us old guys feel ashamed." Chu Li did not say a word and continued to heal himself. The red-faced elder shook his head and sighed. "That's why you can only die. Perish together with Tianjin. There's nothing better than that." Chu Li raised an eyebrow and opened his eyes. "You don't dare to offend the White Tiger sect or the Holy Church of Light. Who exactly are you?" Hee. "I'm just an idler," the red-faced old man said with a smile. Chu Li scoffed in disdain. "An idler? Since when did the Flaming Sun sect have idlers?" Oh. The red-faced elder raised an eyebrow and said in surprise, "You may look silly, but you're a smart and powerful person." Chuli asked, "You dare to kill me?" "I don't dare to kill you." The elder from the Flaming Sun sect shook his head and said with a smile, "But the White Tiger sect and Tanjin do." "I can kill Tanjin, but I can't kill you?" Chuli asked coldly. The red-faced elder shook his head and laughed. "That's not necessarily true," Chuli said. "Even if I'm injured, killing you is still a piece of cake." The red-faced elder chuckled. "Young man, you're just stalling for time. Your injuries are very serious, aren't they? Go ahead and try then." Chuli scoffed. The red-faced elder looked at him cautiously, but did not dare to get too close. Even Tanjin had died by his blade, so the light blade's power made him very fearful. Chuli curled his lips and said in disdain, "Old man, you're a disgrace to the Flaming Sun sect with your guts." Chapter 808. Chuli did not dodge. As the palm energy was about to hit him, he suddenly put his palms together and separated them. A tiger silhouette instantly appeared and shot toward the red-faced elder. The red-faced elder was shocked. He dodged the tiger's silhouette in a flash. Bang! Chuli was sent flying. The red-faced elder sighed in relief, but the next moment, a cold bolt of lightning pierced through his throat. The red-faced elder widened his eyes in disbelief. The tiger silhouette that had been chasing him crashed into his back with a loud bang and flew toward Chuli. Chuli rolled on the ground and struggled to stand up. He put his palms together and separated them again. A tiger silhouette appeared between his palms and struck the elder's back again. When he first met Fang Qingyang, he could not see the heart technique of his martial arts because of the divine light body. However, he could see the heart technique of the White Tiger sect members. He had learned the White Tiger killing skill long ago, but had never used it. Zhao Vidya did not have this ability. Now that there was no one around, he could not help but want to try it out. It was indeed amazing. The red-faced elder was about to channel his energy to lock his throat and take out the spirit medicine when the tiger's silhouette interrupted him. Bang! The red-faced elder landed heavily on the ground. Chuli took a deep breath and spat out another mouthful of blood. The red-faced elder's internal energy was profound. His earlier attack had worsened his injury. He sat cross-legged on the ground, but was not in a hurry to treat his injury. Through the omniscient mirror, he saw Yuru rushing over from afar. A moment later, Yuru, who was dressed in a green outfit, approached him valiantly and anxiously asked, "Young Master Zhao, are you all right?" Chuli shook his head. "I won't die. Tanjin is over there. Go take a look." "Thank you, young Master Zhao." Yuru's expression changed, and she quickly glided toward Tanjin. Tanjin looked miserable, but Yuru was enjoying the sight. "Is he really dead?" Yuru asked. Chuli replied, "He should be completely dead. Miss Yuru, please take off his robe. I want to keep it." "Okay." Yuru nodded. She was not afraid of Tanjin's miserable appearance. She clumsily took off his robe and handed it to Chuli. Chuli said, "This is a treasure robe that can block my flying blade. It can't be left outside." "That's an impressive treasure robe," Yuru praised. Chuli nodded lightly. Yuru said, "Then let's hurry back and recuperate." Chuli shook his head. "I'll heal myself here. I'll need to retrieve my flying blades later. These are treasure blades that can cut through iron like mud. What if someone else comes?" "I'm not afraid," Chuli said. He closed his eyes and began to circulate his energy. When Yuru arrived in front of the red-faced old man, she cried out involuntarily when she saw his face. "Pang Jinshui!" Chuli ignored him. Yuru looked at Pang Jinshui's injuries and then looked up at Chuli. Chuli closed his eyes to cultivate. Soon, white steam rose from the top of his head and became thicker and thicker until it covered his face. Yuru turned to look at Pang Jinshui in confusion. Judging from his injuries, there were injuries from flying daggers, as well as injuries from the White Tiger killing skill. The wounds inflicted by the White Tiger killing skill were extremely easy to recognize. There would be the outline of a white tiger on the wound, and one would be able to tell at a glance. It was obvious that Pang Jinshui had arrived a step ahead of him. He could imagine that Pang Jinshui would suffer the flying daggers. The Flaming Sun sect was in cahoots with the White Tiger sect, so it was only natural that he would help Tan Jin kill Zhao De. But why were there injuries from the White Tiger killing skill on his body? Could Tan Jin have regarded him as an enemy? No matter how she thought about it, she could not explain it. Judging from his injuries, Tan Jin and Zhao De must have regarded him as an enemy. Could it be that he had wanted to kill both of them while they were injured? Was that why he was killed by their joint attack? Chu Li did not use the life and death scripture. Instead, he relied on the divine light body and the great light scripture to heal his injuries. Even so, his injuries healed at an incredible speed. The divine light body was extremely powerful, and it healed very quickly after being injured. The Buddha, in the void of his mind, kept chanting the great light scripture and Mahavairocana's immobility scripture. The lotus flowers formed from the Buddha's scriptures seemed to be real and fell on his body. Coupled with the heavenly demon scripture, the lotus flowers formed from the three scriptures kept falling on his body, and his body healed rapidly. An hour later, the white steam on top of Chu Li's head quickly converged and turned into more than 10 strands that entered his hair. He slowly opened his eyes. There was a flash of light in his eyes before it slowly disappeared. Yuru hurriedly asked, "Are you feeling better?" Chu Li stood up. "I'm fine now." He slowly walked toward Tan Jin's corpse. With a flash of cold light from his waist, he cut off Tan Jin's head with his long sword. "He's dead now." Yuru looked at him in confusion. Chu Li scoffed. "The White Tiger sect might have a way to resurrect him. I can only be at ease after I cut off his head." His long sword flashed again, and Pang Jinshui's head was also cut off. Then he sheathed his sword. "Let's go and pick up my flying blades." He glided forward and occasionally waved his hand. A flying blade would fly up from the ground and fly into his hand like a swallow flying into the forest. From the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain, Chu Li collected the flying blades along the way. Fortunately, he had an extra set of flying blades, or he would not be able to keep throwing them. If he ran out of flying blades halfway through the fight, it would be fatal. Yuru was speechless as she watched. She had been staying in Gale City for a long time. Although she did not have much contact with the Holy Church of Light, she vaguely knew that the light blade could not be used more than a few times because it consumed a lot of energy. On the other hand, Zhao De had used countless blades. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief and put the flying blades back into the leather sheath on his wrist. He had finally retrieved all of them. If someone happened to pick them up, he would be heartbroken. Yuru asked, "Young Master Zhao, how are your injuries?" She noticed that Chu Li did not look too good. Chu Li took a step forward and covered a distance of more than 10 meters. It was as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. He looked very carefree as he shook his head. "It's just a small injury. I'll be fine in a few days. Follow me back." Yuru floated gracefully in the wind. She said softly, "Now that Tan Jin is dead, the White Tiger sect will really go crazy." Chu Li scoffed. "That's all there is to it." Although he said that, he was secretly in awe. Tan Jin's cultivation level was really powerful, and he had a hard time winning. If there was someone more powerful, it would be hard to say. Yuru said, "Tan Jin is wearing the treasure clothing, but he's not wearing the White Tiger armor. If someone else comes wearing the White Tiger armor, it'll be very troublesome." Chu Li looked at the treasured clothing he was wearing. This treasured clothing is very powerful too. He did not mind that it was worn by a dead person and immediately put it on. He felt much more at ease. This treasured clothing is powerful, but it doesn't protect the throat and head. "That's why you were able to get it, young Master Zhao," Yuru said. "The White Tiger armor only covers the eyes." Chu Li frowned. "The White Tiger armor is better than the tortoise shell." Yuru pursed her lips and chuckled. "Whether it's the White Tiger armor or the tortoise shell, it can restrain the light blade." "All right, let's go back to the Phoenix Goddess brothel," Chu Li said. At this time, the sky was turning dark and the surroundings were gloomy and dim. By the time they entered the town, the lanterns had already been lit. The two of them entered the Phoenix Goddess brothel through the back door. When they reached the third floor, Chuli returned to the room where the Sumeru formation was set up. Yuru poured him a cup of tea and handed it to him. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "What's up with that Pang Jin Shui from the Flaming Sun sect? He's trying to take advantage of the situation." Chuli took the teacup and took a sip. How can it be so easy to take advantage of the situation? This guy is too greedy. That's strange. Yuru nodded. This time, the Flaming Sun sect and the White Tiger sect are going to be very lively. Chapter 809. P.S. Update complete. Yuru chatted with him for a while before she tactfully retreated from the house so that Chuli could focus on his recovery. For the next few days, Chuli stayed in the house to recuperate. Yuru would come over once every 3 days to deliver food. Other than that, she would not disturb him. Chuli could tell that Yuru had become much friendlier toward him. It was obvious that she was grateful to him for killing Tanjin. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. After Chuli had finished healing his wounds, he immersed himself in cultivating diligently to improve his great light scripture. The White Tiger sect would never give up. Next time, they would send even more powerful masters who might even be wearing White Tiger armor. It would be very difficult for him to defeat them with his light blade. He would need to fight them head-on and rely on his cultivation level. When the lanterns were first lit, 2 old men slowly stepped into the Phoenix Goddess restaurant. The 2 old men were very conspicuous when they stood together. One was tall, and the other was thin and small. It was as if an adult was walking with a child. However, both of them had a dignified aura around them that made others not dare to make fun of them. When they arrived at the Phoenix Goddess brothel, a servant came forward to welcome them. The short old man said, "We want to see Yuru. Miss Yuru? All right, follow me." The manservant hurriedly led the two into a room on the 2nd floor. Soon, Yuru gracefully entered the room. She was dressed in a plain and clean gown. She curtsied and smiled sweetly. "Greetings, masters. We're from the White Tiger sect," the short old man said. "Miss Yuru, you're a disciple of the Tian Luo sect, right?" Yuru nodded gently. "So you're a senior from the White Tiger sect. Please excuse me. I'm a disciple of the Tian Luo sect. May I know what business both of you have with me? Tanjin came to see you, right? Elder Tan?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "Asked me about Zhao Day's whereabouts." "Nothing else." Yuru shook her head. "I once took advantage of Zhao Day's arrival and plotted against him. Unfortunately, the musical assassination technique was ineffective against him, and I couldn't kill him. He immediately fled, and I haven't seen him since. I haven't seen Senior Tan for the past few days either. Tanjin is dead." The short old man said in a deep voice, "I'm Zhou Ningyi. I have a few questions for you. Do you really not know where Zhao Day is?" Yuru was stunned. "Why do you say that, Senior Zhou? Someone saw you deliver food to the person on the 3rd floor." Zhou Ningyi snorted. "Who is this person?" "This." Yuru shook her head. "Forgive me for not being able to answer your question. You're Zhao Day, right?" Zhou Ningyi asked coldly. Yuru bit her lower lip and shook her head gently. "No, it seemed like the White Tiger sect had a spy in the Phoenix Goddess brothel." The Phoenix Goddess brothel belonged to the Tian Luo sect. The White Tiger sect had actually bribed spies in the brothel. What was their motive? "Take us there," the tall old man said coldly. "I'm Fu Yu. You should have heard of me." "So it's Senior Fu." Yuru's heart skipped a beat. She had indeed heard of Fu Yu's name. He was ruthless and ruthless. "You have a grudge against Tanjin, don't you?" Fu Yu asked. Yuru was stunned. "Why do you say that, Senior Fu? I've never seen Senior Tan before. What grudge do we have?" "Umph. The vengeance for my father's death is absolutely irreconcilable," Fu Yu said coldly. "There's nothing strange about you helping Zhao Day for the sake of revenge." A confused expression appeared on Yuru's face. "Senior Fu, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean by killing my father?" Fu Yu stared at her intently and shook his head. "Take us to the 3rd floor. We'll meet the person who has been delivering meals to you. Please forgive me for not being able to comply." Yuru shook her head. Fu Yu said coldly, Do you dare disobey me? Senior Fu isn't a senior of my sect. Why should I listen to you? Yuru shook her head calmly. How dare you? Fu Yu said in a low voice. Do you think that I won't dare to teach you a lesson? Yuru said, although the White Tiger sect is powerful, the Tian Luo sect isn't a pushover either. If Senior Fu wants to teach me a lesson, I'll let the seniors of my sect seek justice from you. How naive, Fu Yu sneered. I like to see who dares to seek justice from me. As soon as he finished speaking, he put his palms together and a lifelike tiger silhouette suddenly appeared. It was like a real white tiger and suddenly shot toward Yuru. Yuru's graceful and delicate body swayed like a lotus flower on the surface of the water to avoid the attack. However, the tiger silhouette was agile and continued to chase after her. Yuru shifted her position several times in the room, but in the end, she still could not avoid the tiger silhouette. With a loud bang, she was sent flying and crashed into the door. Senior Fu, you're so powerful. A cold and delicate voice was heard as a beautiful young woman suddenly appeared and stood in front of the two men. My disciple is a bully, and she's attacking someone as she pleases. Bai Feng, Zhou Ningyi, and Fu Yu frowned. Bai Feng sneered and said, Senior Fu, what did Yuru do wrong for you to hit her? This little girl is arrogant and rude. I'm disciplining her on her behalf. Fu Yu scoffed. Bai Feng said coldly, disciplining her on my behalf? You're an old fart. You're neither her senior nor her relative. What right do you have to discipline her? Bai Feng, don't be presumptuous. Fu Yu shouted. No matter how presumptuous I am, I won't be as presumptuous as you. Bai Feng scoffed. You're just taking advantage of your seniority. Who do you think you are? Bai Feng, stop talking. Zhou Ningyi waved his hand. It's just a small lesson. She won't suffer any serious injuries. Yuru had already stood up. She felt a tightness in her chest, and her internal organs were slightly injured. Bai Feng glared at Zhou Ningyi with her beautiful eyes. Old man Zhou, you're pretending to be a good person again as if this has nothing to do with you. How did my disciple offend you? Hee, it's all a misunderstanding. Zhou Ningyi waved his hand and smiled. A misunderstanding. The two of them immediately realized that they had misunderstood. Yuru had obviously sent food to the third floor for her master, Bai Feng. Bai Feng scoffed. So my disciple has been beaten up for nothing? I'll go to the White Tiger sect's territory and teach your disciple a lesson. I'll say it's a misunderstanding too. Stop fooling around. Fu Yu scoffed. Did you guys see Zhao Dai? Yes, we saw him. Bai Feng nodded. Not only did we see him, but we also helped him deal with Tianjin. We've gained a lot from killing Tianjin. Are you happy now? Bai Feng, stop fooling around. We have to find Zhao Dai, Zhou Ningyi said. Bai Feng scoffed. How am I fooling around? You beat up my disciple. Can't I say anything? The White Tiger sect is used to being domineering. Are you trying to unify the three sects? Even the Holy Church of Light isn't that bold. All right. That's enough. Zhou Ningyi waved his hand and said, Yuru isn't injured either. Do you guys know where Zhao Dai is? The White Tiger sect has informants everywhere. How can we know? Bai Feng said impatiently. The White Tiger sect is so arrogant. You can't even deal with a mere disciple from the Holy Church of Light. How dare you come here and teach my disciple a lesson? Fu Yu's expression was cold. He knew that he could not get entangled with Bai Feng. Otherwise, there would be no end to it. Her master was the sect leader of the Tian Luo sect, and she was extremely protective of her disciples. If he had known that Bai Feng was here, he would not have attacked her. He would have just threatened her. Chapter 8:10. Only formations can hide from the White Tiger soul-tracking skill. Zhou Ningyi sighed. I'm sure he hasn't returned to the Great Light Peak, but we can't find him. He must be hiding in a formation. Elder Zhou, are you saying that only the Tian Luo sect knows formations in Gale City? Bai Feng frowned and scoffed angrily. Why didn't I know that the Tian Luo sect is so powerful? There are others who know formations, but not many of them, Zhou Ningyi said. Bai Feng looked sarcastic. There are many people in the Tian Luo sect who know formations, Zhou Ningyi was speechless after being rebuked. Everyone knew that although the Tian Luo sect also cultivated formations, they cast a wide net and did not expect to catch any fish. There were only 1 or 2 people in the Tian Luo sect who knew formations, and most of them stayed in the sect. Even if they were not in the sect, they would not come to Gale City and would stay in Blessing City or Tianhua City. The Flaming Sun's sect knows formations too. Bai Feng said coldly, "Why don't you suspect the Flaming Sun sect instead of me? Do you think that we're pushovers because we're all women? What are you talking about?" Zhou Ningyi waved his hand and smiled. "That's not what we meant. We're just here to take a look before going to the Flaming Sun sect." Fu Yu's expression darkened at the mention of the Flaming Sun sect. Bai Feng scoffed. "The Tian Luo sect has always played its part. It seems like you're treating this as a sign of weakness. Fine. I'd like to see what you're capable of, Senior Fu." All right. Zhou Ningyi smiled and waved his hand. "We actually believe you. The Flaming Sun sect. Oomph. The Flaming Sun sect has formation masters too. Everyone knows how ambitious they are. How can they let go of this opportunity?" Bai Feng curled her peerlessly beautiful red lips and harumphed. "If it was me, I would have gone over and asked them to hand him over by now. It might not be the Flaming Sun sect." Zhou Ningyi shook his head. "You know Pang Jinshui, right?" Bai Feng scoffed. "That guy's the most annoying. He's cunning and greedy." "He's dead," Zhou Ningyi said. "There are injuries from the light blade and white tiger killing skill on him. He must have been killed by Zhao Dai and Tan Jin." "What did he do?" "He wants to kill the 2 of them." Bai Feng replied angrily. "If Tan Jin wants to kill him, he must have done something that betrayed the White Tiger sect. If Zhao Dai wants to kill him, it'll be the same. I'm guessing that he's the one who hid Zhao Dai and then sold him out." "Bai Feng, you're really imaginative." Zhou Ningyi could not help but laugh. He seemed to be deep in thought. "But you're right about one thing. The people of the Flaming Sun sect are getting more and more impatient. The White Tiger sect had lost 3 elders, and their strength had been greatly damaged. The Flaming Sun sect would definitely want to replace them. All these years, the Flaming Sun sect had been dissatisfied with their status and wanted to be the leader of the 3 sections. However, the White Tiger sect had always been suppressing them. Now that the opportunity had finally come, how could the Flaming Sun sect let it go? The way I see it, killing Zhao Dai is not a big deal. Taking care of the Flaming Sun sect is a big deal." Bai Feng curled her red lips and scoffed. "Zhao Dai is a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. If you really want to kill him, will the Holy Church of Light not act? You've already lost 3 elders. If the Holy Church of Light takes care of another 1 or 2, how can the Flaming Sun sect not rebel? If we don't kill Zhao Dai, how will the White Tiger sect maintain its prestige? It's not embarrassing to be defeated by the Holy Church of Light." Bai Feng scoffed. "I've asked around. Zhao Dai was originally a sect disciple from a town. He had a fortuitous encounter and became an outer mountain disciple of the Holy Church of Light. He broke through to the Grand Master's boundary within a few months. He's a genius. As long as the Radiance clan is rebuilt, he'll definitely return to the Great Light Peak and become an inner mountain disciple. He can't stay in Gale City forever. He's a scourge," Fu Yu said coldly. "If we don't kill him now, we won't be able to kill him in the future." Bai Feng cast a sidelong glance at him and sneered. "There are many masters that the Holy Church of Light can't kill. Priest, an altar leader, who can you kill?" Fu Yu snorted and did not say anything. Bai Feng said, "Judging from Zhao Dai's acting, he'll definitely climb to the top in the Holy Church of Light. It's not embarrassing for the Roaring Tiger clan to be defeated by him. It's not like you haven't suffered such losses before. How many times have you been defeated by Sun Mingwei? How can he be compared to Sun Mingwei?" Fu Yu scoffed. Bai Feng said, "In any case, I'm doing this for your own good. Don't go down a blind alley and end up benefiting the people from the Flaming Sun sect." "We're not that stupid," Fu Yu scoffed. Bai Feng's intentions might not be as pure as she thought. The Flaming Sun sect was overbearing, and the Tian Luo sect had suffered quite a bit as well. She was trying to get someone else to do her dirty work and fan the flames. Zhou Ningyi said, "We're in a difficult position now. Are we supposed to admit defeat to an outer mountain disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Bai Feng scoffed. How much will you lose if you kill him? He's not that easy to kill. Zhou Ningyi sighed. How could someone like him be an outer mountain disciple? Another Sun Mingwei. Fu Yu scoffed. As an outer mountain disciple, Zhao De was able to kill an elder of the White Tiger sect. His qualifications must be extremely high, and his future was limitless. Once he became an inner mountain disciple, no one knew what kind of master he would become. When that time came, it would be even more difficult to control him. They had to kill him now. All right, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. The Phoenix Goddess Brothel doesn't welcome you. Goodbye, I won't see you out. Bai Feng waved her hand and said angrily, I'll let it go this time. If this happens again, I'll teach your disciples a lesson 10 times worse. Once she finished speaking, she helped Yuru up and glided away. Fu Yu frowned and glared at them. Zhou Ningyi said, Brother Fu, forget it. Let's go. Is there something wrong with them? Fu Yu scoffed. Zhou Ningyi shook his head and said, whether there's anything wrong with them or not, we can't really attack them. We can't suppress the Flaming Sun sect anymore. And if we become enemies with the Tian Luo sect, we'll be in a bad situation. We have to be careful. This Zhao De. Fu Yu gritted his teeth. Bai Feng's words aren't unreasonable. Zhou Ningyi sighed. If we can't kill him this time, we'll just ignore him. Fu Yu scoffed. I think we'll be able to kill him this time. There's nothing we can do if we can't even kill him with 4 elders working together. Zhou Ningyi said. Brother Zhou, you're afraid. Fu Yu scoffed. I think there's something wrong with this Zhao De. He had a fortuitous encounter, and he's so powerful. Zhou Ningyi shook his head. I'm just afraid that he's another Sun Mingwei. Sun Mingwei was a rare genius. They said that Zhao De resembled Sun Mingwei, but that was just an analogy. They never really thought that he was as powerful as Sun Mingwei. I don't believe it. Fu Yu said coldly. I must kill him. Our priority now is to find him. Zhou Ningyi said. We can't just stay here. What can we do? Fu Yu scoffed. If I find out who's hiding him, I won't let them off easily. Let's find him first. Zhou Ningyi sighed. The two of them left the Phoenix Goddess Brothel helplessly. Chu Li frowned. The room he was in was right above Fu Yu and Zhou Ningyi's heads. His omniscient mirror could clearly see what they were thinking. The 4 Grand Elders were out to kill him. Yuru pushed the door open and entered with a smile. The elders of the White Tiger sect are here again. Chu Li nodded. They're downstairs, right? Yuru said, Master has tested them. They're determined to kill you this time. They might send more than 2 elders. Some of them are in the open while others are in the dark. You mustn't go out and avoid them. All right. Chu Li nodded slowly. Chapter 811. Yuru was surprised to see him agree so readily. She had thought that Zhao De would feel embarrassed when he heard what she said. He would feel that he had shown weakness and would insist on taking the initiative to attack them. She had prepared a lot of things to say to convince him. She told him not to be impulsive and that it was wise to know when to advance or retreat. She did not expect that she would not be able to use her words. She felt slightly disappointed. Chu Li looked at her and smiled. Miss Yuru, I'm not that stupid. I was lucky to be able to kill Tanjin. I'm no match for him based on my cultivation level and skills. Besides, he had the treasured clothing. Yuru smiled. Chu Li said, this time they've sent 2 or more elders, and they're even wearing white tiger armor. If I go out again, it'll be no different from courting death. I still have many years to live. I don't want to die. Yuru burst into laughter. Her smile was beautiful and charming. She was amused by the words, many years to live. He was ugly, so it was funny to hear him say that he still had many years to live. They're all elders. They can't be away from the sect for too long. Chu Li smiled. I believe they won't stay for long. Master said the same thing. Yuru chuckled. After this incident, they might not even look for you again. That's for the best. Chu Li smiled. Yuru said, Master instigated a fight between them and the Flaming Sun sect. If that happens, he won't be able to take care of you anymore. It'll be difficult. Chu Li shook his head. Don't count on the Flaming Sun sect. I'll go into isolated cultivation for a month and see if they can hold on. Yu smiled. That's for the best. A bright moon hung in the sky, and its light shone on Gale City. Gale City was brightly lit, and it was more prosperous than during the day. In a small courtyard in the Roaring Tiger clan, Zhou Ningyi and Fu Yu sat at the stone table in the middle of the courtyard. They each held a white jade wine cup and looked at the bright moon in the sky thoughtfully. After a while, Fu Yu said, after thinking about it, there's something wrong with the Tianluo sect. It doesn't seem like the Flaming Sun sect. Zhou Ningyi nodded slowly and took a sip of wine. Pang Jinshui's death means that even if they were originally harboring Zhao Dai, they have now fallen out with him. Zhao Dai will no longer trust them. Fu Yu nodded. More importantly, that girl Yu has a grudge against Tan Jin for killing her father. How can she not seek revenge? But that by phone, Zhou Ningyi hesitated. There's a way. Fu Yu snorted. Ask her out and lure her away from her territory. Then, cover her face and enter the Phoenix Goddess brothel. Search every room. I'm afraid by phone we'll be able to tell. Zhou Ningyi sighed. She's extremely intelligent. So what if she knows? Fu Yu sneered. We won't admit it, even if she beats us to death. What can she do? Even if sect leader Luo comes, we won't be afraid without evidence. Sect leader will back us up. Sigh, I really don't want to go against by phone. Zhou Ningyi shook his head and smiled bitterly. She's a lunatic. She can't be judged by common sense. No matter how crazy she is, she won't dare to cause a scene, Fu Yu said. No matter what, we must kill Zhao Dai this time. All right, I'll listen to you, Brother Fu. Zhou Ningyi put down the white jade cup and said in a low voice. Under the moonlight, his face was as solemn as still water. That night, Yu received an invitation. Zhou Ningyi and Fu Yu had invited by phone to admire the moon the next night and discuss the search for Zhao Dai. Yu hurried to the third floor. Bai Feng was cultivating on the couch. She was dressed in a dark green gown. She took the invitation and glanced at it. Then she scoffed. They're inviting me to admire the moon. They're up to no good. Yu said. They didn't fight with the Flaming Sun sect. Forget it. I'm not going. Bai Feng scoffed. Yu was surprised. Can we not go? Bai Feng pondered and seemed to be lost in thought. Her eyes flickered incessantly like the stars in the night sky. After a while, she took out a thin booklet and a jade pendant from her inner pocket. Give this to Zhao Dai. Is this the stupefying howl? Yu glanced at the thin booklet and looked at Bai Feng in surprise. Master, can this be taught to outsiders? It's not an earth-shattering antique study, Bai Feng said. He's extremely intelligent, so he should be able to learn it in no time. Yu said, if he uses it, doesn't that mean that we're related to him? So what? Bai Feng scoffed. This is what I want. Yu looked at her in confusion. Bai Feng waved her hand. All right, there's no point in talking about it. Also, this jade pendant can help him conceal his breath for 2 hours. After that, it will lose its effect. Yes. Yu nodded lightly. She knew that her master did not have the patience to explain. She would have to figure out on her own. Moreover, her master's ideas were imaginative, and she would not be able to understand them no matter how hard she tried. All she had to do was follow her master's instructions. After all, her master would not harm her. However, teaching the stupefying howl to outsiders was a violation of the rules of the Tianluo sect. If the sect leader found out about it, he would punish her severely. In fact, since the sect leader was the Grand Master, he would punish her even more severely. Master, are you going to admire the moon? Why not? I must go. Yes. Yu nodded and curtsied before she left. She arrived at Chu Li's room and gently pushed the door open. Chu Li put down his book and stood up with a smile. Miss Yu. Yu placed the thin booklet and the jade pendant on the table and said with a smile, this is a secret manual. Chu Li picked up the booklet and glanced at it. He was surprised. Is this a secret manual? The stupefying howl is a musical assassination technique. Yu nodded lightly. It's also one of the secret skills of the Tianluo sect. It's not easy to cultivate. If Master Zhao has the time, you could try cultivating it. This is the Sumeru Jade Pendant. Yuru pointed at the crystal-clear jade pendant and said, "It can conceal one's breath for 2 hours. After that, it will lose its effect and shatter." 2 hours? Chuli nodded slowly. What happened? Yuru frowned. Zhou Ningyi and Fu Yu from the White Tiger sect just sent an invitation to Master to admire the moon tomorrow night. Chuli asked thoughtfully, "So Senior Bai gave me these?" "Yes." Yuru nodded. Chuli said, "Looks like the White Tiger sect is going to search the Phoenix Goddess brothel." "That can't be right." Yuru was shocked. She frowned thoughtfully. Yuru was not stupid. She immediately understood what Chuli meant. Master had guessed that the White Tiger sect was going to search the Phoenix Goddess brothel. Master Zhao could not hide it anymore and wanted him to leave. Chuli said, "The White Tiger sect will use this trick sooner or later. Tell Senior Bai not to worry. I know what to do." "Master Zhao." Yuru looked apologetic. Chuli laughed. "Miss Yuru, I'm not going to leave the Phoenix Goddess brothel. 2 hours is enough. Think about it. Can't they finish searching in 2 hours? I'll come back after 2 hours." Yuru smiled sweetly and sighed in relief. Chuli said, "Senior Bai is afraid that something might happen, so he asked me to cultivate the stupefying howl. I'll do as he says. Please thank him for me." Yuru nodded. She secretly sighed in relief and left. She initially thought that Master was chasing Zhao De away, but it seemed like she had misunderstood. She was too stupid, especially in front of Master. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.